in my family, it's okay to be a criminal. It's encouraged and respected. So I'm robbing stores, I'm robbing banks, I'm robbing whatever, whoever. Hijacking trucks. I got a $5 million bond, bro. I'm facing 30 years in prison. And this is where one of the most interesting parts of the story is. I said, there's a bomb in the bank. I need $75,000 cash in the next 90 seconds, or the bank goes boom, tick tock. Right. Grew up in Detroit. My father was an abusive drunk who beat on my mother, who was mentally ill. She was manic depressive and would have these nervous breakdowns. And they divorced when I was 4. And then I had to go live with my grandparents in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, which is like a kind of a wealthy enclave. Rich people, it's kind of a rich area just outside of Detroit. Although we weren't like rich, but I would say we were upper middle class, well off. My grandparents, we were poor. Me, my mother, and my sister, poor. And so what makes that remarkable is my grandfather, Peter Paul Tocco, was a cousin of a mafia don, and who actually lived in the neighborhood. And they had grown up together their whole life. They had the same last name, Jack Tocco. Giacomo Tocco was his name. He was the mafia boss from like late 1970 to all the way to 2014 when he died. My grandfather's father and the mafia boss's father, were friends. They were cousins. They had the same last name, and they came from the same little neighborhood in Terracini, Sicily. So they knew each other their whole lives. In fact, the reason they migrated to Detroit was because they were family. And there was a community of Sicilians from a small area of Terracini, Sicily, which is a suburb of Palermo, who all migrated to Detroit. Some went to St. Louis and then migrated to Detroit. It's kind of how my grandfather did, but they all ended up in the same neighborhood of Detroit because they were family. They all dated back to the old country. And the old Sicilians, these are Sicilians that don't even speak English. And they all knew if they came together to support each other in terms of businesses and loans and working with each other and buying and selling from each other and helping each other, that they could create, the success, which eventually they did. Prohibition really helped that out a lot too, because some of them gangsters, mafia guys, in Prohibition made a lot of money, and then they spread it around. So they spread it around. My great grandfather Pietro Lido, came here, didn't speak any English. I guess he's a poor fruit vendor, peddler, and within 10 years he's literally a millionaire back then. And so this is during Prohibition. So I have no way to prove he was a Prohibition, bootleg or whatever, but he became a millionaire and a big contractor, and he built a lot of Detroit. He actually gave a beautiful house to my grandparents as their wedding gift. In fact, he tore down the house that was originally there, which allegedly had a tunnel that went to canal. That's a whole other story. But they tore down the old house that was built in like the 1880s or something, and then bulldozed it and built a nice house and gave it to my grandparents. So all these Sicilians in the same community, they all knew each other their whole lives. They all dated back to the old country. And so, again, I don't know anything about this, but when I go to live with my grandparents, you see the world of the mafia. You've seen Godfather, and you see these guys in Cadillacs and suits and stuff and cigars, and you see all that, right? And you go, whoa, mafia, it's distinctly Italian and mafia. But to me, that was just normal. It was like this is what I knew. That's all I saw, you know what I'm saying? And nothing different. The younger guys wore tracksuits and gold chains, and they flexed knots of money. And, the young guys in their 20s and 30s, and my uncles and stuff. But I didn't pay any attention. I was just a little kid. Until one day, there was a girl I had a crush on. Her name was Jackie. I still remember her name. She had a birthday party, and she didn't invite me. And I asked her after, at school, I was kind of having my feelings hurt. It's like, why didn't you invite me to the party? She said, my mom said you're in the mafia. And I said, I don't even know what that is, you know what I'm saying? So I went and asked my Uncle Pete, who was 12 years older than me. He was my mother's younger brother, he was, I don't want to say a gangster when he grew up. Yeah, I guess he was a gangster. He was a hustler, street guy, Never wanted to be in the mafia. He thought that was for suckers. Why pay an old man some money? You keep it yourself and you don't have to listen to anyone. But he said to me, when I asked him that, he was probably like 17 years old. He was with his buddy. And I said, what's the mafia? I was probably like 6 years old. And he says, he starts laughing. He looks at his boy, and he's like going to my nephew. And he says, you hear the kid? And he says, don't worry, you'll figure it out soon enough. It's our family. So I don't know what it is, but I start paying attention more, because I'm trying to figure it out, and over the next 4 or 5 years, I'm kind of watching how people treat my grandfather. My grandfather had a business in the Eastern Market, which is Detroit's Little Italy. Still to this day, it's Detroit's Little Italy. But back then, all the way back to the 30s and 40s, all the way up, all my life, anyways, it was like the epicenter of the Italian community. Most of the old mafia bosses and mobsters all had businesses in the Eastern Market. And if you do some homework about some of these legendary mob guys from Detroit, they all started off as like, well, the FBI had them listed as produce vendors. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why. Maybe that's something that goes back to the old country, something they knew how to do. And it was like, so they started like a produce business and food service. But that's what the feds all listed. So they all worked in the Eastern Market, had businesses and where. So my grandfather had a business in the Eastern Market called Tocco Produce. That's the family name. He had it for 40 years. And for 25 years, he had one of the biggest contracts in the city, which was providing food for all Detroit public schools, the whole Wayne County public schools. It's an enormous contract, like the modern day equivalent of maybe a $10 or $15 million contract. You know what I'm saying? It's huge, right? Now, you can't get a contract like that back then without mafia influence. The boss kind of dictates who gets those. And I'm sure, like the boss, being cousins with my grandfather, said, Pete, I'm gonna, I'll get you this contract because through his influence, with the city council and comptrollers and mayors and whatever. I'll get you this contract, and you wet my whistle. So I'm imagining my grandfather paid him a cut every year, gave him an envelope with 50 grand or whatever it was, and that was that. So then he retired, back in like 1987. That was the end of it. I don't know if my grandfather was involved in crime per se. My Uncle Pete, the same Uncle Pete I was just talking to about, he did tell me once that my grandfather helped Tony Giacalone, and I'll talk about him later. Very famous mobster who was the number one suspect in Jimmy Hoffa disappearance. My Uncle Pete said my grandpa would help Tony with the layoff bets, sports bets. And I didn't know what that was. So I said, what is that? He says, well, bookies try to balance their books before a game. They're always trying, the goal is to balance the books, and they collect 10% juice. So the winners pay the losers pay the winners. It doesn't matter. They get 10%. But if they're off balance, then if this one hits, they lose big. So they would call Grandpa, and he would find bookies who needed that off bet. So that's what he did. And it made sense because my grandfather was in that market all his life. He loved sports. He was a huge sports fan. He loved baseball. Went to every Detroit Tigers game. He had season tickets. He actually introduced me on my 10th birthday, introduced me to the owner of the Detroit Tigers. The guy lands in a helicopter on the roof of the players' parking lot and walks me up. And I was like, oh, my God. I was more impressed by the helicopter than the fact that this guy owns the Tigers. But anyway, so he loved college football. So the fact that my uncle said he was a layoff bookie of magnitude doesn't surprise me, but I don't know. He was my grandpa. He's an old man. I just know that the men that he was around, that he was friends with, that I'd see down there in the market, these mob guys, they were prototypical, like, same things you may see in the movies and stuff and throwback. That's what they looked like. That's how they acted. So I'm paying attention as a kid. I remember going to the store, the corner store. Old Greek guy named Gus owned the place, and he would never take my money. So I'd go in there to buy candy and ice cream, and he'd say, "No, Alonzo, keep your money. Tell Papa I said hi." And oftentimes he would cut some like cold cuts or something, and then give me a package to run home to my grandmother and say, "Tell your mom I said hi." So I never did but my friends were with me, and some of my cousins might be with me, and he'd take their money, but he wouldn't take mine. So that was a little odd. And then so I just started at some point I saw the movie The Godfather. I'm not sure how old I was. I'm gonna guess around.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how old were you?
I'm thinking I was probably like 12, maybe. I do remember I was at my Uncle Joe Toco's house. And my Uncle Joe Tocco was a one of them prototypical mob dudes, you know what I'm saying? Just like big, heavy-set guy, dark, swarthy skin, heavy-set, big gold ring, cigar. He's the only one who drove a Lincoln in my family. Everybody else drove a Cadillac. He drove a Lincoln, so he took a lot of flack for that. Everybody was busting his balls because the Lincoln was always breaking, and the caddies wouldn't. And anyways, I actually crashed his car at his anniversary party when I was drunk, 15 years old. But anyways, I remember watching The Godfather at his house with my cousin Patrice and Jerry. And it hit me because I'm like, it was very much reminiscent of the world I was around and my family. Obviously, it was Hollywood and glamorized and more, glamorized. but it was similar, very, very similar. Then it struck me at that point. I realized when that girl said you're in the mafia and her mom didn't want me there. Now I get it. My uncle said you're going to figure it out. Now I get it. Now I understand why Gus won't take my money. Now I understand why every time someone in the market sees my grandpa, they give him a kiss on the cheek. They give him one of those double handshakes, like, "Hey, Pete, good to see you, paisan, good body," and they give him a freaking kiss, and everybody kisses him, and my mother, everybody like the highest level of respect. Now it makes sense. Now I know my grandfather's not a mob don. He's not Don Corleone, but I do know that some of these men are like that. I don't know who's who. I'm young. I'm just a kid. So I realize this, that these are criminals. I do understand that these are criminals. So in my little 12-year-old mind, I said, so in my family, it's like, it's okay to be a criminal. And in some cases, it's encouraged and respected. All the men who were I knew were the mob guys got the most respect. Everybody kissed their ass. Everybody wanted to be like them. Everybody. So I'm like, in my little young mind, I'm like, oh, this is good. Okay. But I didn't pay much more attention to that. I didn't have any plans to be a mobster or gangster like that. I was a little kid. I don't know. Then one day, about the same time, I was probably about 12, 13 years old, I see a mini bike on the side of the road. I've told this story, but I'll tell it again. I'm on my way to my grandparents. I moved out of my grandparents and was living with my mom at the time. My mother was mentally ill, and we were living very squalid, living horribly. And every Sunday or every Friday, we would go back to my grandparents in the old neighborhood, and we'd stay the whole weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'd get a bunch of food. We'd do our laundry and all this stuff, and then we'd head back to the house. But on the way there, I see a mini bike, and I see it's $100. I want this freaking mini bike, and it hits me like, I want this freaking mini bike, man. So I see my Uncle Pete at the house. He's still living with my grandparents. He's only like 24 years old at the time. My other uncles had graduated college and was working for the IRS at the time. That was part of his job in the family, was infiltrating the IRS, which he did. And but anyways, I see my Uncle Pete, who I always, because when I'm with him, he's often saying, he says, Alonzo, let's go down to the market. Come with me to the market. And I drive down there, and he'd go down there in his new flashy car and his gold chain and tracksuit, and he'd pull up at the market, and all these cousins of his would be hanging out, sitting around, smoking cigarettes, busting balls, just like you see in the movies. I mean, just like you would see in Little Italy. They'd be hanging out on the loading docks in the Eastern Market, just busting balls and laughing. And I'm a little kid. I'm 12, but my uncle liked to bring me. He thought it was cool to have his little nephew around. And they'd bust my balls, and I'd bust their balls and whatever. And they always had money. They always had all these guys. And they were never working. That's another interesting thing. Like, even though the families that the businesses they were in front of were operating businesses, these guys actually never were doing any business. They were just like there, hanging out, playing poker, playing dice, BSing. I mean, I guess I saw them do some work, help load trucks and stuff. But there was a bunch of black dudes that worked there, and they just order them around to do whatever, and they just kind of run the show. But they all had money. And good, good looking girls were coming around, these beautiful girls. And I'm like, I'd be like them, man. Like, in my mind, I'm like, I want to be like those guys because they're funny, they're smart, they dress nice, they got good gold chains, they got my girls. And so, anyways, I seen him, Uncle Pete, about this mini bike. I'm like, I saw this mini bike on the way here. Would you buy me this mini bike? Like, I really want it bad. He says, I'm not buying you a mini bike. I said, come on. He's like, I know you got money. I said, I see it in your pocket. He's not buying no freaking mini bike, but I'll tell you how to get this mini bike. I said, all right, well, tell me how. He says, do you know those Jerry Lewis cans? There's like a little can. Do you remember the Jerry Lewis foundation?
Telethon. Yeah.
Telethon. So, right.
Yeah, the telethon.
So he says, you go to the store and you get one of those cans, right? And they'll give them to you. And then you stand out in front of the store and you jingle the can. Would you like to donate to Jerry Lewis, kids? And people stuff change and $1 in there or whatever, right? He says you do that for a few hours, you collect the money, you dump it out, you keep the money, you turn $10 in, you got your mini bike. So I said, okay, and here, keep in mind, this is a guy who I look up to, I aspire to be like, you know what I'm saying? I think he's a grown man, and he's telling me this is okay. So he's got instilling in my little young mind, this is the behavior that is acceptable and encouraged. Go do this. It doesn't really, I know what I'm doing is wrong. I know it's scammy and slimy, but it doesn't hit me like, man, this is really scumbaggy to do. I mean, this is just what we do. So I end up going to stand in front of a Kmart for like 5 hours because the local store, I wasn't getting enough, man. I'd get like maybe $10 an hour, if that. So I drive my bike, my pedal bike, like 7 miles. It's a long ways for a 12-year-old kid to ride on a pedal bike, man. Like to like 2 cities over, bro. And I stand in front of this Kmart. Would you like to donate to Jerry? And I fill up this can 3 times. And then I tied the bag of money and change to my bike, and I pedal back. You know, it's about an hour and a half drive back, and I'm like surprised I didn't even get lost. And anyways, I had $140. So I called my dad and said, "Dad, will you take me to buy this mini bike?" And he says, "Where'd you get the money?" And I said, "My Uncle Pete gave it to me." I lied. I said, "Uncle Pete gave it to me." So if my dad takes me to get the mini bike, I get it, and that's like my first like criminal scam racket. Shortly after that, I got into freestyling on the bike, right? I was doing these tricks. I really was into it. I wanted a cool bike so I could learn how to do it. And I asked my Uncle Pete, buy me the bike. And he says, "No, I'm not buying you the bike." And I know he's got money, so I'm like, "Dude, you tightwad mother effer, man. What?" And I'm saying, "Buy me the freaking bike. Mom said she'd give me $100. The bike's $350. You know, kick in $250, man. Help me get this bike." He says, "No, here's what you do. Go get your cousin Johnny." I said, "Why?" I said, "Just go get him." Now, Johnny's a bad kid, very, very bad kid. He's doing life in prison right now for a double murder, you know. And he was just a bad kid, which is funny because he didn't have to be bad. He was like a good-looking kid, you know, come from money, but he was just one of those rotten apples, man. One of those kids who were just born to be bad. He liked the idea of being a gangster. He liked violence. He was just a sick, sick dude. But he was a troublemaker, and I hung around him. He was one of my best friends at the time. But my uncle says, "Go get him." So I go get him, and he comes over, and my uncle says, "Listen, Alonzo's going to give you $50 to steal a bike. He wants a master. Go up to Grosse Pointe South, the school, in the middle of the day, steal the bike, bring it back, and give you $50. Can you do that?" He says, "Yes." I says, my uncle says, looks at me, he says, "When you come back next weekend, you'll have your bike." So I give Johnny a week. So I come back the following Friday. First thing I do is I go find Johnny. You know, I find him, you know, where his mother said he's at the park. I go find him. I'm like, "You get the bike?" He said, "Yeah." You know, he brings me the bike. And it's not the exact bike I wanted. I wanted a Haro Master. He got me a Haro Sport. Didn't care. Gave him the $50. Got to keep $50. And now I'm like, okay, I'm starting to see what we do, right? So anyways, I end up getting in a lot of trouble over those young years living with my grandparents. I had no father figure. I was getting into trouble. I was getting expelled. I mean, suspended a lot for fighting and stuff, bro. I mean, true story. This is a true story. My second day in first grade, when my parents got divorced and I moved to this high affluent neighborhood, my second day of school, there was like this kid. He was bullying all the other kids and had in the classroom these big wood building blocks, almost like 2x4s, you know, but they were like painted, and you could build a fort with them and stuff. And the kid's just like taking everybody's stuff. He was bigger than everybody. And I asked him, "What's this kid's?" And they're like, "Oh, he should be in third grade, but he's in first grade still. So he's this big giant Luca Brasi, like a big Luca Brasi on it." And
Right.
he don't bother me, but I'm watching him pick on all these other kids. And then this is the type of kid I was. Like I'd snap, I had black out, I had no control over this. I pick up a 2x4 and I just walk up to this kid, wham, and I bust him over the head. And I start beating the kid. So I'm suspended like day 3. Day 3 in my new school, I'm suspended. The principal is like, "Oh my God, this kid's out of control. He's been here 2 days. He's already beaten a kid over the head with a building block." And this was the recurring, kind of thing for the next several years while I was there. Then I went and moved with my mother, and that didn't last long. A couple years, getting in a lot of trouble. I ended up getting expelled from the school district I was in then for fighting. I was actually on in-house suspension, which was my 9th in-house suspension in 10 weeks, or my 9th suspension in 10 weeks. They stopped even sending me home. They just put me in this like closet with my homework and say, "Here's a desk, here's your homework." It was like precursor to prison, bro. It was just like prison for a kid. I hated it. And I went to go use the bathroom. I'm in 8th grade, and while I go to use the bathroom, this semi-crippled kid named Dave, I can't believe I remember his name, good-looking kid, but he got hit by a truck, so he limped really bad, and he was actually really muscle-bound, though. Really good genetics, muscle-bound kid. Well, these 2 older kids he was a 7th grader, and these 2 older kids were beating him up in the bathroom when I walked in. Like, they were just beating him up, and this kid was not, like, first of all, he was no punk. He'd fight. Second of all, but he wasn't a troublemaker. He wasn't cocky. He wouldn't mess with nobody. He wasn't a douchebag. For these guys to be beating up this kid, they're just straight up bullying. And so I snap on these guys. Now me and this kid, Dave, the crippled kid, are in the bathroom fighting these dudes. Boom, boom, and we're banging around, crashing, boom, boom. The teacher across the hall hears it, runs in and breaks it up. And anyways, I end up getting expelled, right? But when they went to call my mother to tell me, we can't have this kid anymore, man, they couldn't get a hold of her because she was in a mental institution. She had a nervous breakdown. And so me and my sister, who was 16 at the time, were living together alone. I was 14 and she was 16. My mom was literally locked in a mental institution. We didn't tell anybody.
Well, why? What was the specific reason? Was there a reason? I
She
mean,
had a nervous breakdown, they call it, where she just
right.
lost it. She was standing in front of the bank with one of my baseball trophies, telling people that I am the son of a king, and just really she was just lost it, man, lost it. My dad broke her mind. My dad, which is ironic because my dad's a total douchebag, right? And I don't know how she ever fell, because my mother was the sweetest, nicest lady, just a sweet. I don't know how she fell for such a douchebag. But anyways, yeah. So they locked her up in a straitjacket and took her away. And so then they couldn't get a hold of my mom. They called her emergency contact, which was her parents. And her parents were like, well, we can't take you. I guess they could have. But they said, they called my dad. They said, George, you got to take the kid. So I go to live with my dad now. Now, my dad is an alcoholic, drunk douchebag, right? My sister can drive. I have to change schools because I'm 14 years old. But my sister has her driver's license in a cheap little Omni piece of junk car. Well, she's able to drive to her old school, because my dad lived in a different city. It's only a couple miles away, but it's a different city. So my sister was able to stay in the same school and keep going. She was a cheerleader. She was beautiful. All the boys liked her. But now I got to start at a new school where nobody knows me, right? And so I end up, the second day of school, I get in a fight. We ended up being, I got into it with a dude, but then the fifth day of school, I got in a fight with the second toughest kid in the school. We fought for 10 minutes, man. And I finally beat him. I broke his nose. And but barely. He was a tough kid. His name's Craig Sachecki. And that gave me a lot of respect in the school. People were like, "Oh, this new kid's, ain't no punk." You know what I'm saying? He just whooped Craig Sachecki. But I was a mess. I literally did nothing that entire school year. No assignments. I was a troublemaker. I started smoking weed. I got introduced to weed. I started selling a little weed. I failed, bro. I'm not joking. This is all of this. When people hear the entire story, it'll be kind of holy crap, you came this far. I failed 8th grade. You can't imagine how embarrassing that is to fail 8th grade. You know what I'm saying? All my friends, the few friends that I had made, are all going to high school next year. Not me. I'm going back to have school with the 7th graders who are now 8th graders. I will preface this really remarkable, unbelievable element. There was a girl who went to my school, I'll get to her later, who was in that second year I was in 8th grade. It was her first year in 8th grade. She ended up failing too. We were in the same hallway, in the same class of about 100 kids in 8th grade. I never met her, and I would meet her. I would encounter her 25 years later, and wait till you hear who she is. So anyways, I get kicked out of 8th grade a second time. By this point, my second time in 8th grade, I'm 15 years old, and now I'm starting to sell weed. Why? Let me explain this. My dad is not feeding me, bro. So he's not giving me any food. He makes one meal a day. It's about 8 o'clock at night. You might get some crackers or a bowl of oatmeal or some stale something. He still lives like this today. He only buys guys with $250,000. More than that. He's got $250,000 cash. He's 80 years old, and he buys all the marked down food at the grocery store that they're going to throw out. He buys it for a nickel. He's just, that's the kind of guy he is. And so I was starving. Now, at the time, I had a homeboy who had a cousin who sold weed. That's who we bought weed from. You buy an eighth of weed or a quarter ounce of weed. You smoke a little weed. And I remember the dude saying to me one day, he saw me, I had a troop jacket. Now, my mother was nice. My mother, whenever she'd get her welfare check, or she did, when she was lucid and stable, she worked as a teacher, an assistant, substitute teacher. So she had a little bit of money, and she asked me what I wanted for my birthday. And so she bought me a troop jacket. Do you remember troop back in the day? very expensive leather jackets. They're kind of famous because people were getting killed for them, in the city. Like a gangster rappers wore them. LL Cool J had one named after him.
I'm in Tampa, Florida. There's no leather jackets.
No,
Like we had
yes, exactly.
members only jackets or something.
Yes. No, you wouldn't. But up there, up in Chicago, Detroit, New York, these troop jackets were a big deal. They were like $350. My mom bought me one. So the dude said to me one day when I was over there buying bag weed, "You ever want to sell that coat? I'll buy it. I'll give you half ounce of weed." So here's where it gets interesting. There's this black friend named Sidney. He lived in projects, an all black ghetto. And me and my boys would go over there and hang out with them. And his cousins and brother were crack dealers. This is back in the height of the 80s crack epidemic, right? So we would drive over there on our mopeds and we'd hang out in his house and smoke a joint. And just me and this black dude. His brother and cousin would come in. They were older. And they'd say, "Yo, Alan." They called me Al. My name is Alonzo or Alan. And they called me like, Al, somebody want some of that weed, that good weed, because they were like, "You white boys always got the good weed, man. We can't get, all we get is the brown dirt weed." And I sell you a joint or two. Like, "No, send me the bag." I'm like, "Nah, bro, I'm not selling my bag, you know what I'm saying? But I'll sell you a joint here and there." Or I'd smoke a joint with them, right? But they were like, their friends would come in. Like, I'd sell them a joint, and like 20 minutes later, they'd walk in with 5 dudes. They were all crack dealers. They'd sit on the corner right out on the block and just like, then crackheads would pull up and they'd, "How many? Let me get 4." They'd boom and win. It was day and night, 24/7. They had lookouts. If a cop came, they'd freaking woo woo, and freaking they'd all run. And the police station was like a mile away. That's the irony. Anyways, they'd come in there and they'd like, "Yo, man, sell me that bag of weed." And they pull out like $800, $1,000. They'd not. I'm like, "I'll give you $50 for that bag. I know it ain't worth $50. I'm like, "Nah, man, I just want to keep my bag." And a couple times I sold it, right? When one day I went in my refrigerator when I was starving, just starving, I bought this piece of shit moped that's just junk moped. Like the throttle cable was broken, so you had to pull a cable. And if you touch the brake while touching the cable at the same time, you got shocked. It would shock you. So like it was just junk. I said to myself, "I'm starving. I could sell this jacket for a half ounce of weed to that dope dealer and then flip this sack to these black crack dealers in the ghetto." That was my thing. I'm going to drive to the ghetto with this half ounce. So now I drive across 2 cities on this piece of junk moped. I don't even have enough gas to get back. This is a good story. I go to this house thinking, I'm hoping this dope dealer's at the house. I pull up. His car's not there. He had 2 cars, though, Mustang and a lowrider. The lowrider was gone, but there's a different lowrider there. And I know it belongs to this young kid who's covered in gold, and I'm assuming he's a big dope dealer. I knock on the door, and they're like, these guys are older. They're like 21, 22. They only know me as their cousin's young friend, like a little punk-ass kid, right? And I knock on the door, and they're like, "Yo, what's up, L? What do you need?" They're expecting me to say, "Well, I need an eighth or a quarter, a week. I'm there to buy a bag." And I said, "I'm looking for Joe." And he's like, "Well, he's not here." I'm like, "Well, but I got the sack." And I'm like, "Well, I wanted him to front me something." He's like, "Whoa, I can't do that. I'm saying you have to talk to Joe." He said, "Well, I said he wanted to buy my jacket for a half ounce. He's like, "Yeah, I drove all this way." And he's like, "That's between you and him. When's he going to be back? Could be hours." I looked through the door, and there's about 4 of them. They're playing Nintendo on the couch, 4 young hustlers, right? And the one kid, I'm not joking, he's a little redheaded kid. He's got gold chains that he looks like Slick Rick, the rapper dude, back in the day. Big, huge rings, big, huge bracelet. The dude's draped in gold, and he's got a $50,000 white lowrider truck in the driveway. I assumed he was the plug. So I say to that dude through the one guy's in the door, but I said, "Hey, man," to the dude, I said, "Can I talk to you?" And the guy's like, "Me?" I said, "Yeah, can I talk to you for a second?" Like, "What's up?" I said, "Out here, like, in private." So the guy said, "It looks weird, like, whatever." So he opens the door and he steps outside. I said, "Over here." We walked on the driveway. I said, "Hey, man, listen, bro, I'm starving, dude." I said, "I know you're the man, bro. I got this jacket. Joe said he'd give me a half ounce for it, man. You give me a half ounce. I know you're the plug. I know you're the man." He looks at me crazy. He says, "Why would you think I'm the plug?" I said, "Bro, I'm young, but I'm not an idiot, dude. I'm saying, look at you. You got $20,000 in jewelry on and a $50,000 lowrider. You're a 19-year-old kid. You know what I'm saying?" He kind of looks at me. I said, "My mom bought me this jacket for $350 like 3 months ago, man. I'll give it to you for a half ounce. It's 75 bucks. I said, you know, and I can flip it. I'm just hungry. And he said, why? I said, my dad don't feed me. I'm starving, bro. I'm eating one meal a day. You know, I play sports and baseball, and I'm just starving. And he looks at me and goes, your mom bought you that jacket? You gonna give me that jacket? And your mom? I said, yeah, man, I'm willing. And I say, I got these black crack dealers down in the panic zone. I tell him where it is, the Oxford Square. He knows where it is. I said, they'll buy all the weed I got. I can bring whatever. They'll buy it up like that. He kind of thinks about it, says, keep your jacket, man. Follow me. So he jumps in his car. I follow him on my moped. We go 3 or 4 blocks. I go to his house. We go into his bedroom. He just lives in the neighborhood. It's not a fancy house or nothing like that. His mom's watching, like, you know, a soap opera. And when we walk in, his bedroom's pretty nice. We go in his closet. There's a safe. He opens this big safe, and it's like got 10 pounds of weed, which to me is like, oh my God, 10 pounds of weed? Are you kidding? Most that I ever seen was like an ounce. You know what I'm saying? He pulls out a pound, and he says, the triple beam's on the counter. He says, weigh a quarter pound. I'm like, I don't know how to use that triple beam, man. And he said, you don't even know how to use the triple beam? I said, no, I don't, you know. So he weighs a quarter pound, and he hands it to me. He says, listen, I'm going to give you this for $700. That's kind of a high price, but if you sell it, flip it, you'll make $200-300. If you do good, I'll hook you up and give you a better price. He says, you burn me, man. You know what I'm saying? It's game over. He says, go to the Plum Pit, which is a head shop on Gratiot. He says, buy you a hand scale. They're like $5. He must have saw the look on my face when I said, oh, man. He says, you don't got $5? I said, no. So he pulls a knot of money out, and he hands me $10. And he says, go buy a scale. Weigh your bags heavy. If you weigh the bags heavy, maybe a half gram over, people will come back and buy more bags, and you'll get in the game. So I did that. I went home. I called the same cousin Johnny that I mentioned earlier, and I said, hey, man, I'm about to go into the panic zone to flip some weed to these black crack dealers, man, but I need you to have my back. Bring your gun. I knew he had a gun because he stole it from his dad, or he found it. It was his dad's gun. His dad was in prison, serving 25 years. His dad was a mobster, right? Doing life in 25 years in prison. Well, he was digging around his dad's stuff. He found his .44 revolver, big freaking revolver. I said, bring that gun. He had a nice moped, and he lived like for 10 miles from me, so it's a long ways on a moped. Bring the gun, let's go. So we go to the ghetto, and I get Sydney and his cousins, the black dudes who are friends of mine. I said, listen, come with me out in the square. There's like a basketball court and some picnic tables and stuff. And tell all these crack dealers, man, that I got the sack. I got the good green weed, right? And Johnny's going to sit there with the gun. He's going to have my back. Because they would have robbed me in a second. You know what I'm saying? If I would have posted up out there without my cousin and the gun, I would have get robbed within 5 minutes. They would have just took the sack, and that would have been in it. Punched me in the face.
Right.
I was a 100-pound kid, you know, and that was it. But because he was there with that gun, they were like, well, what's up with your homeboy, man? Him and that gun, man? What do you think? Is John Wayne? I'm like, I just got my back. That's it. I sold out that whole sack, that quarter-pound sack, in like 4 hours there, and I made like $260. I took the $260, went to the grocery store, loaded up on groceries, stuffed my refrigerator and cupboards with it. My dad came home. Where'd all this food come from? I said, it's mine. Don't touch it, which is exactly what he would tell me. It's mine. No, I'd see something in the fridge or food. I said, Dad, what's this in here? Can I have this? That's mine. Don't touch it. So now I'm like, okay, this is mine. You don't touch it. And then I started selling weed, and I started cranking, and I started getting so much traffic at my house, and that I had to like start having homeboys sell weed for me, you know, and I got them beepers and did all the, you know, the thing. Because the next day when I called that drug dealer, I said I flipped that whole quarter pound. He couldn't believe it. He's like, you flipped the whole thing in a day? I said, yeah. He says, come on, I'm going to pick you up. He picks me up, drives me to this telecommunications store, gets me a beeper, gives me a bunch of cards, and he schools me to the game. This is what you do. Hand out your business card, hand it, don't deal with any. This is how you avoid narcs. This, you know, don't deal with people you don't know. Don't let anybody introduce people you don't know. This is how to look for narcs. And so I got in the game, and 6 months later, I got 10 guys working for me, 10 guys. And I'm probably making, you know, probably $2,000 a week, right? I go to high school the next year. Well, first of all, I get expelled from 8th grade indefinitely for punching my teacher in the face. Or my principal, excuse me. It's a long story, but there was a concert, and in the concert they threw a Nerf football, and I dove to catch it. And when I dove to catch it, I need some girl in the face. I hurt 2 or 3 people. Like, I was such a spaz that when they threw the football, I'm like, over here, and he threw it. I dove into the crowd over from the top of the bleachers, and I crushed like 5 people and like busted some girl in the ear. She's crying. So the principal calls me out in the hallway. He goes, what the F's wrong with you? He punches me in the face. My assistant principal, this Asian dude, Kuznia, we all thought he knew karate because he was Asian. He was stocky Asian dude. He was stocky. And he's like, what the F's wrong with you? Bam! And hits me. I'm like, what the frick? You can't hit me, Matt. Bang! I hit him back. He goes, that's it. You're out of here. Get the fuck out of here. And they did. They expelled me, and that was it. So the last 4 or 5 months of 8th grade, I wasn't even in school. I was too young for adult ed. I couldn't even go to adult ed. You had to be 16 to be an adult ed. So I just basically stayed at home and sold dope and ran around the neighborhood, started selling acid and mescaline and a little bit of and running around. I'm just hustling, man. I'm grinding. By the time I turned 16, I get a car, I trick it out, I got kickers in it, I got 4-wheelers, I got dirt bikes, I got all this crap in the garage. I'm hustling. Even my dad's like, how you getting all this money? I told him I was a loan shark. That's what my Uncle Pete told me to tell him. He's like, if your dad, because I said, my dad's pressing me about the money. Where am I getting these toys and crap I'm buying? He said, tell me to put money on the street. I'm like, what is that? He said, you loan money and they pay you back. And I said, all right, you can't prove I'm not. So, and then I get to 9th grade, or I last 10 weeks. An idiot. I got in a couple of fights. That's strike 1, 2. What else? I think I got busted smoking weed in the bathroom. And then finally, one of my best friends, scumbag named Ricky, whose brother was a mob guy, like grew up and be a mob guy who actually got indicted in the RICO case in '96. He was stealing from lockers, man. He was breaking into lockers, stealing, and he stole a jacket. And he told me, he said, I'll trade you this jacket for a half ounce of weed. It's like a $300 leather jacket. I said, you didn't steal this jacket. He says, no, I didn't steal it. This is my brother gave it to me. He grew out of it and gave it to me, but I'll give it to you for a half ounce of weed. I said, you didn't steal it? He said, no. So I take it, I wear it to school. The kid who he stole it from sees me wearing it, tells the cops. The cops come in, they swarm in, they take me in the office, and they're questioning me. I said, I bought it from a guy in the corner. Who? I won't tell him. So they charged me with receiving and concealing stolen property and interfering with a police investigation because I wouldn't rat on my friend, right? So they expelled me. I'm out. Boom. Out of school indefinitely. So I did go to adult ed on and off over the next few years, but basically from that point on, I just dove into the streets, and that was that. Then around 16, 17 years old, about 16 and a half, I was real skinny. And I started hanging around these kids from high school who played football, and they like this tough crew of kids. My boy Gino, Pat, Pasco, Jay. They're all like football players, big muscle-bound kids, and we made a good crew. We were all tough guys, and we were a wrecking crew. Like my little sophomore crew could whoop 90% of all the seniors. You know what I'm saying? And everybody knew that, and so they were kind of scared of us. Not everybody. We couldn't whoop them all. The older seniors, some of them there were some tough guys too. But so they started working out, and all the girls were on their jocks, like the ones that were getting stocky and big and muscle-bound. All the girls are like, oh, I'm like, that. It's like, and I'm sick of getting tried, man. I'm getting tried by these older, bigger kids all the time. So I'm having to fight and act crazy. They think I'm mentally ill. They literally think I'm mentally ill because I stand up to them. These older bullies would try to bully me, man. Like the biggest, toughest guy in the school, his name was Chris Carver. He was a big, bearded dude, like a big Italian looking. I think he was Greek. I don't know. But he looked like he was like 5 years into an NFL contract. He was a big 220. He benched 500 pounds in high school. But he tried to punk me one time. Twice he did. And I stood up to him once, the year before when I was 15. And then a week into my high school, he shoved me and walking down the hall. Bang! He just shoved me, punk, like this. And I stand up to him. What's the guy shove him? You freaking crazy? I'll beat you, little punk. I said, then do it. And I turned. Now I'm in the middle. This is as school is letting out. So there's 500, 600, 800 people walking into the parking lot, and I'm squared off with this big giant dude. I'm legit 120, man. I'm 120 pounds. This dude is 225 with a beard, 18 years old, big as hell, benching 500 pounds. And I'm like, he's like, what are you going to do to me? What are you going to do? I'm like, what are you going to do? What you want to do then? Do it. And he said, I'll beat your ass. I said, beat it. I said, you're not going to do nothing. You just talk and talk and talk. And everyone's trying to pull me back. Come on, Al, you're going to get yourself killed. You're going to get yourself. I said, get off me. I said, I don't give a F what he does. He ain't going to do nothing, da, da, da. And then he said, man, listen, you ain't even worth it, kid. You're mentally ill. That's what he said. There's something wrong with you, man. You're mentally ill. You ain't worth my time to squash you like an ant. I said, yeah, man. Well, let's see. So when I did that, everybody thought I was crazy. And anyways, when they busted me for the freaking stolen property, they expelled me. I'm in the street. So I get to selling. I start getting involved in the steroids. That was my point of telling you that was I was tired of having to get tried by bigger, older kids. And I wanted to look better for the girls because I was real skinny, man. I was like a little skinny, wiry, freaking like 120-pound kid. Not a good looking kid. I don't think I was a very good looking kid either. So I wanted the attention. So I started working out and I started investigating steroids and, to get in the game. And I go to my Uncle Pete, the mob dude, or he's kind of connected to mob guys. I said, you got some, any plugs for steroids? And he says, yeah, I know this guy named Joe. And I'm like, tells me the guy. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I know that guy. He works out at the gym where I've been working out at. He's like, yeah, Joe D. This big muscle bound guy. And he said, but don't approach him. I'll hook you up with somebody that goes through him. He at the time, the guy Joe was 29 years old. And in my mind, he was like old, you know what I'm saying? Because I was only 17 years old. So that 29-year-old dude was an old dude. And so my uncle hooks me up with a dude. It's a whole nother story. He just said, go to this guy. I approach him, this big giant mother effer named Jerry. I go through him for a while, but that guy ends up with a baseball scholarship when he leaves, goes to California to play baseball. So now I lose my steroid plug. And by the way, I'm making good money on steroids, bro. I'm probably making, $1,000 a week on steroids, plus, $2,000 a week on the weed. So I'm doing good. I'm hustling. I got a new car with kickers and tinted windows and rims and all the toys and gold. I'm balling out for a kid, 17-year-old kid. And then so I lose my plug for the steroids, and I know the main guy is this guy named Joe D. So I just walk up to him in the gym one day. I said, Joe, can I have a word with you? By the way, I am the smallest guy in the gym. I am not kidding. I am the smallest guy in the gym. This is, by the way, the most steroid-infested gym in American history. That's what the newspaper said. The newspaper said this gym was the most steroid-infested gym in America. I didn't know that, but there was all these giants in there, so it made sense. So I said, Joe, can I have a word with you? He's like, what's up? And I said, in the bathroom. So we go in the locker room. I said, hey, man, I think you know my Uncle Pete. I said, Pete Toko. He says, Pete Toko, this guy? And I said, no, that's another Pete Toko, a cousin. I said, no, Pete Toko Jr., this one. He said, oh, yeah, he's got a bunch of sisters. I said, yeah, one of them's my mother, Grace. He says, okay, yeah, Pete, good guy. I said, listen, man, Jerry. He said, yeah. I said, who went away to school, he was getting something from you for me. And so now I can't, and he said, what were you getting? I'm like, some of those bottles of test and cypionate and da-da-da-da. He's like, all right, listen, I know your uncle. I know Jerry, good guy. I'll ask Jerry. He said, here's my number. Give me a call. Call and say you want to use the tanning bed. If I say yes, come over. We'll do it. So I go to his house. He's dealing with a couple mob dudes these big giant dudes. He tells me to wait in this anteroom. He's got a nice house. I'm sitting there like this, little kid, I'm still 15 again. I dress real nice. I'm trying to be respectful, I put a suit on. I'm trying to, because in my mind, the guy was like high level mob guy. Because in my mind, he really wasn't. But in my mind, he was, because he was this old Italian hustler that knew mom. And I'm just assuming that he was part of the mafia. So I put out a really nice outfit on, dress around. And he tells me to wait in this anteroom, and all of a sudden these two giant dudes come walking out. And he says, hey, you see this? That's Pete Toko's nephew. And they have these two big dudes. Oh, I know Pete. And they shake my hand. Nice to meet you. These giant mother effers, 7-footers. And I would get to know who those guys were too. I sold them growth and steroids later on. So he invites me in. He says, what are you trying to get? In his office. And he opens this, there's a big giant safe, huge safe. And he opens a safe. And I swear it was one of those moments where you hear the music, the hallelujah. Oh, this safe, it's got 15,000 bottles of testosterone and steroids in there. The whole thing just packed. Right. And there's a bunch of weed in there and some guns. He said, what are you trying to get? I'm like, well, it just depends what you have. He's like, here's what you do, man. Take whatever you want. And then just when you sell it, give me the money. I said, I couldn't believe it was that easy. You know what I'm saying? I thought I was going to have to give him $500 up front and take it. He's like, no, just take 5,000 worth. I'm like, what are these? And these bottles I sell for $120. He's like, $25. I'm like, are you kidding? So I'm like, I was like, because Jerry, the guy I was getting from, was charging me $75. So Jerry was making 50 on each bottle. Now I'm making 75. It was just crazy. So I get a big bag of it and I walk out, and this goes on for the next several months. Don't know that Joe is under a huge FBI investigation. They're on him, bro. They got his phone tapped. His house is under surveillance. They got us all coming and going. It's over for Joe. 55 guys, 8 different states, 3 different countries, hundreds of millions of doses is what they say. There are hundreds of millions of doses, like one pill is a dose, or one bottle is 10 doses, whatever. And anyways, I end up selling. Well, what ends up happening is one day I go to the gym. There's this somber. Everybody's looking at me. Everybody knows I'm a drug dealer, and everybody knows I'm tied to this guy Joe. They all know by now because I'm cool with them in the gym, and all these guys are being nice to me. I'm this kid. I'm starting to blow up. Now I'm getting kind of bigger. I'm like 18 years old, and all these big steroided giant, mob type dudes are real nice to me. So the people who work there know. I walk in one day and they're like, you hear about Joe? I'm like, what? And he's like, last night you didn't know he got raided. They arrested him last night. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, it's all in the paper. It's all over the news, bro. It's like all over. I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So I freak out, and then I go look in the newspaper, and sure enough, there's the big bust they're covering it. Steroid rings, organized crime, yada yada yada. I'm like, oh crap, man. 2 days later, the two narcotics task force cops come to my house and arrest me, and it was for
You're on the indictment?
not the indictment though. So what it was is some scumbag set me up and introduced me to a cop, and I sold 2 hand-to-hand deliveries to a local narcotics task force, and so they got me for 2 hand-to-hand sales, $5,000 each. So they came and arrested me, and then because they waited to arrest me until after they did the sweep on the indictment, the Fed indictment. They didn't want to rattle the cage or whatever. So after I get arrested, I bond out. Not a big deal. Bond's only like 20 grand. So I pay a bondsman $2,000. I get out. The cops were pretty cool. They're like, you're a kid, man. They're not going to freaking burn you. You're probably not going to go to prison for this. Da 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 da. Get you a lawyer, fight it. You know what I'm saying? Of course, they were like, you want to cooperate? I'm like, no. And then so that was that. But then a few days after I was arrested, this FBI agent comes to my house, and dude, he's got this ledger. This is the crazy part. Joe, the main plug, whenever you take, let's say I took $5,000 for the bottles of whatever, he kind of code it, but he put your name. We put your initials, AL. Well, my name is Al. Everybody calls me Al. And I call, what's up? This is Al. He puts AL in his ledger, and then he puts what you took in the ledger. So he's got this ledger. Now the FBI guy shows up at my house, this big tall motherfucker. He tells me I'm agent such and such, and I know where you're going. So I invite him in. He sits down at the table and he says, "Okay, I got the ledger. I know who you are. We've watched you come and go. We've heard conversations. We know what you were doing." So I have 2 L's in this ledger in this book. One was getting like $100,000, $200,000 worth of drugs at a time. One was only getting $5,000 at a time. And I'm like, yeah, I'm the little guy. I'm like, I'm just selling to my high school buddies and, football players, high school kids at the gym. I'm not a freaking,
right.
They said, well, we figured that, we wanted to verify. I said, so am I going to get indicted? Am I in any trouble? And he says, well, you may be hearing back from us. I said, okay. But they never came back. They didn't care. It was just a small fish in a big pond. And so I did get 6 months in the county jail. That's a whole nother story. I fought the case for the steroid delivery for 18 months. I got a good lawyer, all the money I could afford. The weird thing was at the time when the steroid bust happened, like a couple of weird things happened. Like one, I got arrested for steroids, and that rattled a lot of my clientele from the weed. I broke my beeper. I had a Ninja at the time. I had a crotch rocket, and I'm flying down the street. I used to drive that thing like a flipping maniac, and my beeper fell off my hip. I was doing like 90, and it smashed and broke. And then my phone broke. My cordless phone broke. You could call out, but it couldn't ring in. So you wouldn't know if somebody was trying to call you. So all in 1 week, nobody could call me, nobody could beat me, and I got busted for the steroid. So my whole operation went crumbling down, right? So I still had some weed customers, and I was making $1,000 a week, but I went from making $3,000 a week to $800 a week. It was bad news for me. But and now I'm fighting a case, so I got to kind of lay low too, because the cops are watching me, and they were following me. They were staking out my house. They were watching me. They were trying to get me. I was nobody, but they were still trying to get me. So then I get this lawyer. He don't really work that hard. They said, based on just so you know, by this point, I had already 8 felonies. I had 8 felonies by the time I'm facing this charge. Got busted with some pipe bombs. Some mob guy tried to, well, he didn't, but he paid me $3,000 to go blow up a nightclub. Not while anyone's in it. They just said, go there at 5 a.m, bust the window out, throw a pipe bomb in, and send him a message. He paid me. I got busted with the pipe bombs before I could do it. So after I got bonded out on that and fighting that case, I still had to go bomb up the nightclub. I still did it. I still had to do it, which was crazy. But I had that case. I had 3 assaults, 3 felonious assaults for just whooping mother effers when I got out of control. The receiving and concealing, avoiding the interfering with police investigation. I had a malicious destruction of property. I had all these felonies. So when the prosecutor saw all these felonies on my record, I'm 17 years old. Now I got the steroid thing. They're like, this kid's got to go to prison. But keep in mind,
it sounds reasonable.
It sounds reasonable, right? So you keep in mind, like my uncles and all these old mob dudes, they are completely abreast of all this. Like they're very social people, the Sicilians, and they call and talk, and they're all retired, so all they do is talk. They call, they talk, they visit, they hang out, they play cards, they smoke cigarettes. They literally play cards or bocce ball every freaking day during the summer. I mean, they're just always together. Oh, my grandson got arrested again. My grandson got another felony. My grandson got arrested again and again. So all these old men, they'd see me and they'd be like, Alonzo, how you doing? I heard you got in trouble. I heard you got in trouble. I heard you got in trouble. And that's not even counting the amounts of times I got arrested for driving on suspended. Dude, I had 19 of those just in my city, bro. 19 driving on suspended. My grandparents are bonding me out all the time. Anyways, so
you're like a source of entertainment for them.
Not really.
What's going on? No,
I'll tell you what I was.
They think it was bad.
I was a source of embarrassment, bro.
Oh, really? I thought they would think that it was kind of comical.
No, this is embarrassing for them. Very, very disappointing and embarrassing. Because you got to remember, most of these old mob guys, they had kids and grandkids. They didn't raise them to be gangsters and criminals. They raised them to be college-educated professionals. They put them in business. They seeded their professional businesses, and got them out of the life. The only ones that got involved in the life were the losers, like myself, the ones that were just absolute dummies. And like even Jack Tocco, who was the boss of the mafia, he was college educated. He went to U of D Mercy, where my mother went, and he had a college degree in business. There's several of them. The underboss also had a degree in business. So these guys, they saw me as just a freaking screw up scumbag idiot, and of course my grandparents were like, and all these other kids, they grew up in this highfalutin neighborhood. Lots of them were good in school, and they would go on to college after high school, good grades, and they get degrees, and then they would, like, their parents would seed their business, and they'd have a new success. And the whole time I'm arrested and jail and fighting and knocking motherfuckers out and breaking my finger on somebody's face. Anyways, so my grandpa ends up bribing the judge to not put me in prison. They wanted to put me in prison because of all this bad behavior. So my uncle tells me, I'm starting to worry I'm going to go to prison. I'm fighting it for 18 months and keep postponing it because they're offering me plea agreements at the time and all. So my grandfather goes, meets the judge, who happens to be a Sicilian. His name is Judge Jeanette, but his real name is Giannetti. And he changed his name to Jeanette to take the Italian connotation off. So he went to him and said, I don't want my grandson to go to jail. Here's 10 grand or prison. And so he said, all right. They sentenced me to 6 months in the county jail. I do the county jail. I know. Now, my grandpa never admitted to this, but my uncle told me. And my older uncle, my Uncle Sal, said, Grandpa paid 10 grand to keep you out of prison. You owe him a lot. You better act right,
Hey, real quick, just wanted to let you guys know that we're looking for guests for the podcast. If you think you'd be a good guest or you know somebody, do me a favor. You can fill out the form. The link is in our description box, or you can just email me directly. Email is in the description box. So back to the video.
So here's where my life takes a pretty big turn. I go to jail, get out, boom. Before I went to jail, I was living with two of my cousins. We had a house in Detroit. There were 2 steroided out, musclehead. Everybody was using drugs. Everybody was partying. There was girls coming. It was just a bad environment, man. I didn't want to go back to that environment, just as bad. So I said to my grandparents, can I live with you? They said, yes. I get out and I live with them. Again, this puts me right in the direct line of fire of these old mobsters that my grandfather talks to every day. And he sees in the market every day, or he goes to play poker with every day, or whenever. They're always around. His eyes start going bad. My grandfather got in a couple car accidents. So I insist, well, Grandpa, why don't you let me drive you? If you got to go somewhere, if you got to see Gumbati Paulie or Gumbati Jack or Gumbati whoever, I'll drive you. He says, okay. So I'm driving him to meet these guys. They speak in Sicilian, so I don't really know what they're saying, but there's a lot of shady crap going on. And, of course, they stop talking. They look at me, and they say, what happened at the Joe's joint, the other day? Joe Scroy, he owns a bunch of nightclubs. I heard you got another fight. And I said, yeah. And he busted the place up pretty good. I said, yeah. And they start asking me questions, and I'm like, eh. So they're like feeling me out. Then one day, this is a few weeks after I get out of jail, I go to my cousin's graduation party, and I've told this story. But in a nutshell, Tony Giacalone, who is the street boss of the Detroit Mafia, I didn't know him well. All I know is that I was introduced to him as an uncle. He was an uncle. My mother said, oh, it's your Uncle Tony Jack. Now, I was a little kid, 5, 6 years old. It's your Uncle Tony Jack. And my mother seemed super proud of the fact that, like, this is your uncle, Uncle Tony Jack. And I'm like, frick, another Uncle Tony? You got like 5 of them. I didn't care. Then he disappeared for, 7, 8 years. I don't see him. Don't even think about him. Then he pops back up 7, 8 years later when I'm 14, 15 years old. And then I remember asking my Uncle Pete, like, whatever happened to him? Like, we haven't seen him for years. He's like, he was in prison. So he went to prison for 7 years or something like that. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Then I see him on and off here and there, and I don't pay any attention to him because it's another old man. All these old mob dudes, they all blend together to me. I can care less. I'm not infatuated, or I can care less. I'm doing my own thing. But then my grandpa says to Tony at this party, hey, Tony, do you think you can get Alonzo some work? Do you think you can get him some work? And but he says it in Sicilian, but I hear my name. I hear Alonzo because he says Alan. My name is Alan, but he'd say Alonzo. He says, can you get Alonzo? I hear my name, and I perk up, so I'm listening. Big party, big graduation party. There's all these kids running around the party. It's a big circus tent. It's a big house in Grosse Pointe, very wealthy area. And I'm kind of like dancing with my little cousins, but I hear my name, so I listen up. And I hear him say, can you get him some work? And he says, yeah, sure, Pete. I can probably find him something. And my grandmother says, no. He's going to go to college. He's going to go to college this fall. He doesn't need to work. And she's really adamant against me working with Tony. She's like, no. And my grandpa says, he's still got to get a job. I'm going to keep him out of trouble. It's good for him to do some work. And my grandma says, no, it slams her head. He's not going to work. And she did not want me engaging with Tony Jack. I didn't know why. So later on that day, I said to my grandpa in private, why is grandma so against me working with Tony? And she said, and my grandpa says, really? I said, what? He says, Tony, you know what Tony does? And I go, oh, you were suggesting that kind of work. You know what I'm saying? I thought he meant a real freaking job, like doing concrete or something. It's some crap I wouldn't want to do, but I would do. So a couple weeks later, Tony calls or comes over and he says, I got you a job. He says, go see my friend Al at Brownies on the Lake. Tell him I sent you, and that I know he needs security. So this old billionaire dude owns this. He owns a whole marina, huge marina. He's got the biggest yacht in Michigan called Brownies on the Lake. His boat's called Brownies too, but he owns this big nightclub on the lake called Brownies on the Lake. It's got a 5,000 square foot deck, beautiful high end, it's just top shelf place. So I walk in there. I said, hey, Tony. Tony sent me. He said, you need me for your head of security? I said a play on words. And I said, I didn't say, Tony said, you're looking for security. I said, Tony Jack said, you need me to be your head of security. And this old man, he's like, Tony Jack sent you? I'm like, yeah, he told me that you need me to be the head of security. I'm 20 years old, bro. 20 years old. He says, oh, okay, yeah. So he walks me in the back, gives me a couple T-shirts. These are the nights you're going to work, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, whatever. And it would turn out that club was the most mobbed up club in the city. All the mob dudes, well, all the East Side ones. I know there's some in the West Side that I didn't really know well. There are some up in Clinton Township I didn't know well. But all the ones from the old neighborhood and most of the East Side guys, they'd come in there all the time. They'd come in crewed up. They're 3, 4, 5 of these guys, 3, 4, 5 of this crew, 3, 4, 5. And they would come up and drink and party. And they all knew I was a Toco. They all knew because a couple of my cousins who were Tocos, who knew I was a Toco on my mother's side, would say, hey, you guys, come on, I want you to meet my cousin Al. They liked me because I was a tough guy. They knew I was always fighting and knocking guys out. I was a real street guy. I was a real gangster, fighting and pipe bombs and arrested and jailed and busted. Like to them, I was like a real OG, like gangster. So when they'd see me and they come here to their other cousins, come meet my cousin Al, he's a Toko. And I would my mother was a Toko, but my last name's not Toko. And they'd be like, whatever, you're still family. And they'd give me a kiss and a hug. And I thought that was cool. And a couple times Tony Giacalone would come in there and he'd stand by the door and he would talk to me. And all these other mob guys that were ranging from 20 years old to like 50. There's different, like I said, there might be a couple guys in their 20s, a couple guys in their 30s, a couple of crews in their 40s. There would be guys in their 50s. And they'd all spaced out to the place. And there might be 500 people in this club. The deck would be packed with 200, 300, 400, 500 people. Guys would pull up on their boats and their yachts. And I'm just a doorman. I'm nobody. I'm just a doorman. But they'd see me knock guys out. They'd see like some dude getting tough, or I'd break him off, and the guy barking in my face. I'd knock him out, bang, and then I grab him, drag him out the door. So these guys were all watching me. And anyways, I got in good with some of them, and I started selling weed to them, pounds of weed, and flipping weed with them, and stolen merch, and I could go on and on. We go on about 1 million scams and rackets, basically any imaginable racket. You have everything from running chop shops to flipping stolen merch to stealing boats, yachts, not really yachts, but they were big boats, worth $200-300 grand. We had a little operation stealing them. We had a larceny ring that was breaking into really big houses in Grosse Pointe, businesses. We had an alarm technician that was helping us bypass the alarms so we could break into these really high-end houses, like multi-million-dollar houses. I was a crash car guy. You know what a crash car is? So I listened to the police scanner. I'd sit in the car and listen to the police scanner and drive this old piece of junk car. And so if I hear the cops are coming, I'd radio the guys in the house. The cops are on their way. Get the frick out of here. They jump in the van and peel off. But if they got I get behind them, and if the cops got behind, tried to chase them, I would crash my car and block the cops. And then they'd pull off. I'm like, what's happening? I didn't do nothing. I was avoiding a squirrel. I swerved, and I hit this car, and my boys would get away. You know what I'm saying? So I was so I was the radio guy and the crash car guy. And then I got one piece of jewelry. I actually orchestrated the whole thing. I put it all together, the team, the safe crackers, everything. So I got one piece of jewelry. And that's how I learned watches. That's how I learned about jewelry. Because my uncle owned a pawn shop, or had points in a pawn shop. And so I would work there sometimes. I'd go there and hang out and help people. But anyways, I learned about the value of various watches and stuff. So when we hit a score, we'd take all the merchandise to the warehouse, and I would go through it and inventory it. And I would pick up a Longines platinum watch and okay, that's mine. And that's how I ended up with like a $50,000 watch collection at the time. And then, but anyways, this is all the crap that I did. And that lasted a while till it got hot because the newspapers were onto it. The local cops, they were going to get us at some point. Now they were really keying in on our operation. So I was just like, we got to stop this. But what we were doing, that's interesting too, because we had all this stolen merch, but we couldn't sell it in the pawn shop. Fur jackets, camcorders, stereos, TVs, guns, all this stuff. Because you can't sell stuff that you just stole in the same city or county in the pawn shop, because they have cops that audit that stuff. They'll come in there, investigators, and they'll look at it. Oh, that watch was just stolen last week in Grosse Pointe. So what we were doing was taking all this merch that we had stolen from the Detroit area and driving it down to Chicago and giving it to some mob guys to sell in their pawn shop. And then we were taking all their merchandise, all their stolen crap, and selling it up in Detroit in our pawn shop. And I was in charge of the inventory, and I had to write everything down. There was a dollar value put on everything. If it was a fur coat, like the Chicago guys say, that's worth $100 to me. So I'd have to write down, mink coat, $100. Then I would take it up to them and say, Chicago's expecting $100 for this mink coat. If we sell it for $150, we make a profit. So I was doing all this stuff, and these guys were cracking safes, and there were some wild times, bro. These guys would go into these houses for like 2-3 hours, man, and crash around these houses, look for money in safes, and they couldn't get into safes. They'd be in there hammering away, busting it. We actually rolled safes down the front lawn 4 or 5 in the morning to the van. Like rolled it out of the house. It was so big and heavy. Just 3 of us stumbling around. It was like a comedy. 3 idiots on the front lawn, trying to pick up this 500-pound safe, roll it into the van, because in that safe might be $1 million. We don't know. There never was a whole lot of cash. But then again, I was never there when they got the safes open. Only once I was there when the safes opened. And so there could have been $1 million cash. And you're like, yeah, there's nothing in it. We worked all night to get it open, but it was $50 in there, or a gun, or whatever. So I never knew. But anyway, so move forward. My whole 20s, I was up and down. And that's when I got introduced to drugs, which was partly my downfall. I got in a fight. See my knuckle there? I broke my knuckle. I smashed this dude really bad. That's a long story I won't get into. But I really beat a guy up bad, and I kind of feel bad for it because legend has it he was never the same, which is ironic because I paid the ultimate price. I broke this knuckle and had to get surgery. They gave me Vicodins and Perconans. I'm like, oh, I love these things, bro. Vicodins and Perconans. These things are amazing. And so I started eating pain pills. And then I was addicted to pain pills for like 6 months. Then I went to jail for a pistol. Got caught with a pistol, but I only got 2 weeks in jail. They reduced it to a misdemeanor weapons violation. 2 weeks in jail was enough to get me cleaned up off the pills. Like, I'm good. So now I get out. I'm back in the game. I'm training. Next 2-3 years, I'm good. My best friend dies. That sends me over to drugs, pills, boom, boom, boom. I'm off and running for like a year. Go to jail, get cleaned up. I'm good. A couple years go by, break my ankle. That sends me off. They give me pills. I'm off and run. And then ultimately, in the end, I'm doing really well. Before I get locked up, I just bought my second house. And I got a couple of nice cars. I got a jet ski, a jet boat, a dirt bike, a Ninja, 4-wheelers. I got everything. My house is pimped. I'm pimped. I started gambling. That was a big mistake. I started gambling because my uncle told me, don't ever gamble unless you're the house. Don't be the house. So anything but house. So I said, I made the mistake of going to Vegas with a friend of mine who was a millionaire. And he's like, yeah, let's gamble. And I won, bro. I won. I don't know if that ever happened to you, but I started playing blackjack and I won. And I like
probably a big,
huh?
That's probably a big mistake too.
Big mistake. Oh God.
Because then you think I can win.
Yeah.
And you just keep betting and betting and
Yeah,
betting.
and then you keep chasing that high. And I won like 14 grand. Now I'm like, this is easy. I'm like, I can't believe more people aren't doing this. It's amazing. It's easy. So now I'm going back and forth to Vegas, and I'm losing. I'd win, I'd lose. I win a couple thousand, I'd lose. But I'm losing. I lost like 75 grand a year the last 2 years, which is not a ton, but it's still a lot. It's like 150 grand over probably 18 months I lost. And I did run some poker games in the past, for Tony Giacalone. He actually had me work security at some poker games, and then I ended up scabbing his players because they cut every pot in the poker games. They cut every pot. It's how the dealer gets paid and the game host gets paid. Well, I remember they had me work security, at the games, and I remember recognizing these guys. So I'd see them in a nightclub, and I'd be like, hey man, you guys want to play my game? And like, what do you mean? You got a game? I said, yeah, I'm putting together a game, but I'm only going to cut every third pot, so there'll be a bigger payout. And they're like, oh, this sounds great, it's a bigger payout. And I'm like, yeah, we'll have girls there, party favors, cigars, drinks, everything's on me. It'll be a great location. Da, da, da. So I would do that. I'd hooked up in my boy's basement, and he had a really good-looking girlfriend. She's like boobs hanging out, pouring drinks, a little bit of, you maybe throw an 8-ball on the table and be like, enjoy, drinks, whatever they want. They play all night, and then we might cut $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 out of the game. So it's easy money. One night's work, $3,000. I give my boy $500 for letting me have it at his house. I give his girl $500, and I keep $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, right? So, and Tony finds out, and he gets mad at me, and he tells me to stop, and threatens me. They don't threaten me, but he's just like, this has to end. Stop. He warned me once, knock it off. Second time, he made me pay me all the money I cut out of the game plus $1,000. So he basically penalized me an extra $1,000. He said, "How much did you cut out of that game?" I didn't even know he knew. "How much you cut out of that game?" I'm like, $5. He's like, "I'll take 6." I'm like, "All right, well, I'll win." He's like, "Now." I'm like, "I don't even have it. I got like $4,500. He's like, "Well, I'll wait." And he says, "I'll wait. I'll be here for a while." He's at my house. He's at my house on the couch. So I got to go to my boy and borrow $1,500 to give to this old mobster because he's mad at me because I scabbed his players for his game. Then I pay him off. But then the third time, my grandpa says, "You got to knock it off, man. Tony's mad. He's really mad. Like, you can't do stuff like that." He didn't talk to me for a year. Tony Giacalone, he didn't talk to me for a year. But then he got me out of some trouble a year later, which was cool. And he liked me, man. He knew it took balls to do what I was doing. Like, he even said to me a bunch of times, he had me beat guys up, He paid me to freaking beat guys up. You know, like he had all these bookies working for him in the street. Like he was the king of the bookies in loan sharks. Like Tony probably had, I'm not joking, he probably had probably 25, 30 bookies that worked for him and probably as many loan sharks. He controlled this massive empire. He also controlled the drugs in Detroit. You may have heard of Frank Usher. You heard of Black Mafia family? 50 Cent made a. So the precursor to the Black Mafia family was Frank Usher. It's actually based on this dude named Frank Usher. Frank Nitty Usher. That was Tony Giacalone and Billy Giacalone's protege. This black kid. They brought him up, taught him to be, basically taught him to be a mobster. They taught him how to structure his organization like a mafia family. The whole thing. He's everything. So then when he got older, they gave him a bunch of dope. You know what I mean? When he got to be 17, 18 years old, they said, build your organization like ours, mafia family, and you're the boss, and you have your underboss, and then you have your street guys, and you have your capos, and your soldiers, and lieutenants, and da-da. And here's the dope, and you give it out to them, and you protect yourself through this insulation, and da-da. And so Tony Jack had the whole black dope game on lock. He paid $1 million to get Frank Usher out of prison. Paid $1 million. But anyways, he had all these bookies. And so he would tell me once in a while, I get a call. It wasn't like I was this regular guy. But once in a while, he would say, I have a problem. You know, call this guy, and I have a job for you. That's what he said. I have a job for you. So I didn't know what that might mean. Then I go meet a guy, and he's a bookie, and some guy was giving him a problem paying money. Like the guy might owe him $10,000. He's like, this freaking guy. He's a young guy like you. He's kind of thinks he's a tough guy. You don't want to pay. You don't want to pay me, or he's avoiding me, or whatever. You know, you get him to pay, I'll give you 10% of whatever you get. I'm like, okay. So I would get him to pay. I would always get the guys to pay. And I wasn't like putting guns to the guys' heads or nothing like that, although there was a couple of situations. But it was usually where I would just be like, hey, man, dude, these guys you owe money for. You know, this is serious business, bro. You can't just hide from the mafia. You know what I'm saying? You owe these guys money. You got to pay up. You're in big trouble. Now you're putting your family at risk and stuff like that. You gotta pay. I'm like, what do you got? You got any assets? You got a rich aunt? Something? You got a car or a boat? Something you could sell? Something? Da, da, da. And so I had guys sell everything from coin collections to sailboats to gun collections. Whatever they had. I also had guys go right to their wealthy relatives and just say, you know, I'm in trouble. I owe the mob money, and I'm in trouble. Can you help me? And they did. And then but that got me in trouble a couple times too. That almost got me indicted by the ATF because I took a guy's gun collection and then sold the guns to a bunch of black dope dealers, and then they got raided, and then they said white kid, described like me, sold them the guns. And then they go, well, the kid, the son of the guy whose guns originally belonged to was a white kid who fit that description. So they went to the kid and said, did you sell your dad's guns? And he said, no, this dude named Al, you know, made me give him my dad's guns to pay a debt. Al who? I don't know his last name, but this is what he looks like. And then they give him a description and a picture. This guy? Yeah, that's him. So now I'm like, they're looking for me. They're trying to put an indictment together on me. I run to New York and I hide for a couple of years in New York until my uncle and his people are able to convince that kid, the main witness, to recant his testimony and say, no, I'm lying. It wasn't this dude Al. I sold my dad's guns. The dude Al had nothing to do with it. I was just trying to make him the scapegoat, blah, 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 blah. And then the indictment was thrown out or never, you know, unsealed or whatever it was. And that was a close call, man, because I would have got cooked for them. Because some of those guns, by the way, ended up with bodies. You know what I'm saying? Like the gun, because it was a $20,000 gun collection. And I took I had a freaking gun bazaar, like a gun auction at a dope house in Detroit. I unloaded this van, $20,000 worth of guns. I told the black dudes who were my boys, I said, call all your boys, tell them to come over here with the cash, buy these guns. And then I'm like, I'll give you $600 for that. I'm like, give me $700 for that AR. And just bang, 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 bang. And I sold almost all, plus I kept a bunch, of course, but I sold almost all those guns in like freaking 2 days, you know. And then over the next, 6 months, some of those guns were busted, raids, and were tied to bodies. You know what I'm saying? And so then when they finally traced it back to the origins of those guns, it was just some like 45-year-old dude who lives in Warren, Michigan. Like, yo, how did your guns? Well, the guy reported them stolen. That's what he did. That's how we got him. We took the guns, put them in a van, left. Said we kicked the door in, made it look like it was a robbery, and I said, now I report the gun stolen, and you can get insurance money, and you'll collect the insurance money. You're all good. So they went back. But when the cops asked the black dudes where you got the guns, they said I got them from a white kid. And then they were like, well, that's funny because the guy who these guns originally belonged to had a son who was a 20-year-old white kid. So they're like, sorry. And then the kid blamed it on me. Anyways, around 20 or 29 years old, I lose it, man. I lose it. Between my best friend dying, breaking my ankle, I'm on pills, I'm gambling, I'm living beyond my means. I just bought this house. Can't afford the lifestyle I'm living. The best option would have been to just like go to rehab. You know what I'm saying? Would have just checked myself into rehab and be like, all right, I'm just got to get my life together. But I had just started a company too. Believe it or not, I started a home improvement, like a contractor business, and it was doing good and making money. I was doing good, but I was just too out there, man. Originally, this is what happened. 18 months before I go to prison, my house gets raided because my girlfriend's crackhead brother sets me up. He tells the cops I got a bunch of in the house, which I didn't. I had a bunch of in the house, but not a bunch of. He walked in because he didn't have a car and he was living there, and I didn't hear him pull up because he walked to the store to get cigarettes. He just opened the door, and I got $40,000 on the table, and I'm counting it. He sees it. He goes, "Al, man, I know you're freaking selling, bro. Put me in the game. Put me in the game." This is a crackhead. I hate the kid. I'm like, I'm not selling, bro. This is loan shark money, or this is gambling money, or whatever it is. I lie. He's like, I know you got coke, bro. I know you're selling coke. We get in an argument. Like the next day, he gets disrespectful. I punch him in the face. I give him a blackout, right? He goes to the cops. He goes up to the gas station, calls the police, says, my brother-in-law is selling. I've seen it. It's in the house right now. If you raid the house, you'll find it. On his testimony, and this is a crackhead who's been arrested 50 times, a scumbag. This guy's been in and out of prison his whole life. This is a horrible witness, They raid my house and they find a bunch of almost 2 kilos of heroin. It's a lot of heroin. And a gun and some steroids and some pills, right? Analog pills, Vicodin. And but the house is in my girl's name. The dope is not. There's no possession of me in the dope. There's no fingerprints of me in the dope. I never touched the dope without gloves on. They don't arrest me, bro. This is how dirty the cops are, man. They don't arrest me because they want me to look like a rat. They know what they're doing. This is how dirty the cops are. They leave an affidavit on the table that says we are here and this is what we seized. If you'd like to talk to us about it, boom. I called them. I said, I don't know what happened. You raided my girlfriend's house, but you got my name on an affidavit about some stuff that you took. I don't know what you took. I don't know what's here. But my girlfriend and her brother live here. I don't live here. Well, you want to come down and talk to us. Do I bring my lawyer? No, there's no charges. We're waiting on lab results, blah, blah, blah. I said, if I need no, you don't need your lawyer. So I go down there. They want me to rat. I said, I'm not going to rat. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, you got no case, man. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, dude, what? Because I had an old car in the driveway, an old Corvette project car, right? Your car was in the driveway. It's an old project car. I don't have room at my house, so my girlfriend let me keep it in her driveway. There's pictures of you there. Yes, of course my girlfriend has pictures of her boyfriend she's been with for 13 years at her house. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't mean I'm there. That the dope that you found is there. Her brother, crackhead, you know that. That's his dope. I don't know. Anyways, they said, well, maybe we win, maybe we lose. Well, we'll go to court. It doesn't matter to me. It's all a day in the job. Whether I win or I lose, I got to go to court. I don't, whatever. I said, yeah, you don't got no case, bro. I'm out of here. And I turned around and walked off. But everybody in the neighborhood knew. All my dope dealing homeboy, my gangster crew, my cousins, the guys I dealt with, everybody knew that about the raid because one of my main weed dudes lived across the street. He's the guy who called me to tell me my house was getting raided. He called my girl and says, your house is getting raided. She picks the phone, calls me, and said, what'd you do? What'd you do? I'm like, what did I do? What do you mean? She says, the neighbor called, said the freaking feds are in the house, tearing the house apart. I'm like, I did. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I saw all that in there, plus 40 pounds of weed in the garage, 40 pounds of weed in the rafters in the garage. They didn't find that though. And there's $32,000 in cash in the closet, the linen closet, just under some towels, bro. Just laid out and like, $4,000 or $5,000 stacks under towels. I'm thinking, oh my God, it's all my money. I had maybe $5,000 in a protein jar in the refrigerator. They found that. I'm like, so they got the 40 pounds, $200,000 worth of and 40 pounds of weed. That's just like 50 grand or whatever it was. I'm like, I am screwed because I owe money for that. I'm screwed. Well, so after the raid, I get my boy. I don't really trust anybody at this point. So I get a guy that I don't even know that well because I don't trust nobody because I'm not sure who set me up. I'm not positive who set me up yet. So I get this dude who I barely know, and I said, bro, we're going to park in the next street. You're going to walk through the backyard behind my house, jump the fence, climb through the window of my bedroom, go into that linen closet, and see if that money is still there. And this dude's like, it's just like a square, bro. This dude's like, he's like, are you serious, bro? I got to walk through some random yard, jump the fence, climb through your window. I said, yeah. And if the money's there, put it in a pillowcase and bring it back. That dude was honest, bro. He went in there. 10 minutes later, he came back running down the driveway. He's got a pillowcase, $32,000 in cash in there. And I think I gave him like $1,000. Thanks for being honest, man. And then I went and checked the garage for the weed and it was in the rafters. They didn't check. The only reason they didn't find the weed is because I had 2 dogs. I had a Rottweiler and a German Shepherd, and they looked really mean and ferocious, but they weren't. They were super soft. But I think the raid team didn't go in the garage and like do a lot of poking around because those dogs are out there. And they didn't find freaking 40 pounds of weed. Anyways, but everybody heard that I got busted. So it was like roaches in daylight, bro. Everybody poof. Everybody I dealt with, my dope dealing buddies, my gangster homeboys, all the guys I did dirt with, all the robbery guys, everybody vanishes, right? So now I'm on my own and I owe a guy 200 grand or 180,000 for the, and I got to pay all my money that I have for a lawyer. Well, I'm saving it. I don't have to pay it, but I'm saving it for a lawyer. Over the next 9 months, I don't get charged. Nothing. They don't charge me for 9 months. So I spend a lot of my money. Now I'm running around robbing Peter to pay Paul. I stole 200 pounds of weed from this black weed dealer who, the irony of him, his name is Bebe. If he ever sees this, I'm sorry, Bebe. I liked you. He was a good dude. I liked him. He was a big dealer, and I convinced him to stop selling because he had the plug on the good weed. He had this Jamaican weed. It was like the best weed. And he had the plug on it, bro. And it was cheap, like $1,000 a pound. I'm like, stop selling, bro. You get busted with, you're going to go to prison for the next freaking, 20 years. It's weed. If you get busted selling 100 pounds of weed, you get for 2 years for probation. You need to get in the weed game. So he listened to me. He got in the weed game, gave up the right? Then one day out of the blue, I call him, and I'd buy 20 or 30 or 40 pounds sometimes from him for a friend. I'd get it, make a few $100. Then one day I said, bro, I need 200 pounds. I got a guy who wants it. And he's like, he was nervous. He was out of the blue. Most I'd ever asked him for was like 30, 40 pounds. And he's like, I'm like, I need 200 pounds. And I tell him, we're going to get it. I'm like, I put it in this freaking, this crate box that's made for a washing machine. I have this Jeep truck. And he has a truck, and I said, we'll do it right in broad daylight. Swap it at the mall. We'll go to the mall. We'll park in the parking lot. You'll park. We'll pull the freaking crate out. It's 200 pounds of weed. We'll put it in the back of my truck. Just wait there. I'm going to run the weed. The house is only 2 miles away where I'm going to get the money, and I'll bring it right back. He's really nervous, bro. Like, we're in the middle of doing this. He's like, man, you sure? Man, I can go with you. And da-da. I said, no, the guy will freak out if I bring you, bro. Just relax. I take the freaking weed and leave. I don't ever see the freaking guy again. 200 pounds of weed. Then I call the guy that I owed for who's a mob guy and a cousin of mine who I'd known for 10 years. I mean, I found out he was a cousin when I was like 20 years old. So, but he's, he was related on my great grandmother's side. He was my boy though. I liked him. He became a big drug dealer and good looking kid. And we did a bunch of dirt together. We did a bunch of scams and crap together over the years. He wasn't really a gangster, but he was kind of a pussy, a pretty boy, but he was a hustler. And I didn't want him to think, because I was known, bro, Matt, I was known for robbing dope dealers. I was known for robbing the plug. I was known for it. So it was hard. Right. It was hard for guys to get them to front me 5, 10, 20, 30 pounds of anything, right? Because they thought I was going to take the money and run, and then what? And then I'd be like, so what are you going to do? You can't whoop my ass? And I said, so if you come to try and I'll break your jaw, and if you want to try and kill me, I always had a gun out. I said, then you better be a good shot and get it done. That's it. And they knew I was like that. They knew I was cut like that. So when a lot of times when I took the dope, took the sack, guys just have to chalk it off. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to kill this guy over 10 pounds, 20 pounds of weed? And then you got to beef with him. If you don't kill him, then he's going to try and kill you. And this is what they thought. I projected this lunatic. But so I just get Angelo to front me 2 kilos of heroin. And normally he was fronting me like an eighth or a quarter kilo. And he finally says to me, hey, man, listen, why don't I, rather than you call me every 3 days for a quarter kilo or an eighth a kilo every 3-4 days, why don't I just give you, a couple keys and then you just come pay me once a month? Makes sense?
All right.
So I was like, okay, cool. Give me the 2 kilos. And as soon as he gives them to me, I get raided. Like I sold like an eighth a key and then boom, get raided and I lose the dope. But then I say to him, yo, my house got raided. And he's like, what? I'm like, he's like, in his mind, he's like, why aren't you in jail? Like, how do you get raided for 2 kilos a day and you're out here walking around? Or at the very least, how much was your bond? I'm like, my bond wasn't nothing. They're like, what? Like, how are you out here walking around busting for 2 kilos and you don't even have, so they could look in the court, like they can go on the computer and stuff. And so there's no record of the arrest. There's no record of the bond. There's no, dude, it looks like you're a rat. You know what I'm saying? That's what it looks like to them. So they're just like, yo, hell, we're good, man. You don't owe me nothing. I don't even know what you're talking about. They're all acting like that, bro. They're all like, what? No, you don't owe me nothing. We're good. I'm like, man, stop acting like that, bro. I would never scam you. Stop it. I'll get you the money. Well, you don't owe me nothing. That's it. So I end up scamming the black dude of 200 pounds of weed and calling Angelo and say, would you take 180 pounds of weed? Because I wanted to keep 20. Would you take the 180 pounds of weed for the 180 I owe you? And he's like, yeah, that's a good deal. I'll take it. You know what I'm saying? So I said, you sell the weed, do whatever the frick you want. So I steal the weed and bring it to him. I keep 20 to, and eventually 9 months later, but the whole time I'm struggling to maintain my lifestyle. I'm gambling. I'm getting high and pills. Eventually, I just bought a second house. I worked out. I was a bodybuilder. I worked out. I dressed nice. I had jet skis. And I was always out jet skiing and four-wheeling and living that life. But dude, when you're spending $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a week and you're not taking it in, you start to get desperate, bro. And that's when you start doing really, really foolish things, stupid things that you normally wouldn't do. That's when I started robbing banks, bro. So I started robbing banks. I started with robbing the square dope dealers that I was dealing with. Like, yeah, I sell a guy 20 pounds of weed, and then he'd give me the money, and then I pull a pistol out and say, I'm taking the weed back. You know what I'm saying? So give me the 30 grand for the weed, and then I'd say, all right, cool, grab the weed, pull a gun, and say, no, I'm taking the weed back. And guys were like, really? What are you going to do? So I did that with everyone I could. I robbed everyone I could. I went pimp hunting. I used to pimp hunt. I'd go looking for pimps. I would go on the 8 Mile in Woodward and tell pimps, I would tell pimps that I was a NFL guy. I was in the NFL and I had a bunch of money. And I need some girls. I need you to bring some good looking girls to the house or to the whatever, to a hotel. And then they'd bring them and then I'd rob everybody. I'd zip tie, I'd pull a gun, I'd rob the pimp, I'd rob the girls, I'd rob them all. If they acted funny, I wouldn't shoot them, I'd shoot by them. Bang, bang, it's scary. And I'd carry this big 45, boom, boom, and all right, give me jewelry, money, cash, everything. I did that, but you don't get much from that, a couple $1,000. And then it got to the point where I needed money, so I'm robbing stores, I'm robbing banks, I'm robbing whatever, whoever. Hijacking trucks. I hijacked a freaking Coca-Cola truck once. You know what I'm saying? For a whole truckload of, and I sold it to the Arabs, in the liquor stores, the Arab liquor stores in the city. I sold them like $10,000 worth of Pepsi, or it was, for like $4,000. They could sell it for. So I'm like, boom, just like that. I'm a poor driver, and I just jump up, put the gun on, and get out. I'm like, no, I didn't say anything. In fact, I just said, drive, mother effer, because I figured they had a GPS in there. So you're going to go here to this warehouse and you're going to do that. Anyways, then I ended up getting in I go to rob a bank. The final day is, bad. We'll wrap it up. But it's my girlfriend, I was 29 years old. And I had in my new house, my girlfriend says it's bill day. And I said, how much do we owe? And she says, your half is $2,200 because we have taxes. Because we always split the bills, And I remember I was getting dressed. and a shirt and tie, like a suit jacket, and I put a pistol in my waist. And I looked looked at myself in the mirror, and I was like, I look good. I'm in good shape. No one would ever know I'm getting high, and I'm a freaking loser. Everybody thought I was doing great. I had this beautiful house, a fiance, and cars in the driveway, toys. You know what I'm saying? I was tan. I was buff. Nobody knew. And I checked my pocket, and I got $700 is all I got. So I tell my girlfriend, I'm going to run up to the bank and get the rest. I'll be back in a minute, a few minutes. So I grabbed this fake bomb that I made out of a drill set, and I walked into the bank. It had wires sticking out of it with duct tape around it and stuff. It was pretty, I didn't put a whole lot of thought into it, but I walk into the bank. There's like a security guy by the door. I said, "How you doing, man?" I walk in, walk up to the counter in the back, set that on the counter, take a withdrawal form and write a note on it. And on the note, I said, "There's a bomb in the bank that's remote detonated. I need 75,000 cash in the next 90 seconds, or the bank goes boom and everyone in it. Tick tock." And then I walked outside and I got in the drive-through and drove to the drive-through, grabbed the pneumatic thing, put the slip in there, put it in there, and sat there like this with my phone, like it was the detonator, looking at my watch like this. I'm telling you, bro, like 60 seconds later, thing comes back, that big envelope full of cash. I throw it on the seat, and I pull off. It was a car that I stole. It was a car I stole from a lot. When you're white in a shirt and tie, you'd be surprised what you can get away with. I just walked up to a used car lot and said, I want to test drive that car right there. And like, yeah, sure, here's the keys, man. You're a white guy in a suit. I was like, I'll be right back. I'm going to test drive it. I'm interested in buying it. And there you go. I just took it and never went back. And I drove it around robbing for the next 7 days or whatever it was. And anyways,
How much you get? How much did you get from the bank? Was it 75,000?
No, I think it was 22,000, but I never got a chance to count it because what happened next was bad. I never did like dig into the what do they call it, the discovery. I didn't care. I hated the legal system. I knew I was effed anyways. So I think there was a tracking device in the money or in the pneumatic thing, or I think maybe people take it accidentally and they know who got it and they call or they find it or whatever. I don't know. But I got on an expressway about 2 miles, 3 miles away, and there was an unmarked black Crown Vic on the side of the expressway. When I passed it, it jumped out and got behind me. About another mile up, it's another cop car. It's on the side of, when I pass it, it jumps up. Well, now I know. So I stomp on the gas. And within 3 miles, there's probably 8 cars behind me, 8 cop cars flying. You just wouldn't believe the crap that I did. I'm doing 100 miles an hour. I'm coming around the bend at 8 Mile. There's a big bend at 8 Mile and 8 Mile and Vernier, or Vernier is 8 Mile. 8 Mile I-94. And a cop comes down the off ramp the wrong way, bro. In a SUV cop car, he comes down the wrong way and blocks off the entire expressway. So the whole expressway is like a traffic jam. So you have the embankment on this side, and you have the little area between the wall and the cars on this side. I smashed this my way between the wall and the car. I'm doing about 100. This guy pulls out like he's gonna try and hit me, but I'm doing way too fast. So he doesn't. He hits the brake. Well, I got 8, 10 cars behind me. I get in a massive high-speed chase. I end up crashing the car. I get out and I run. And I can't get too far. No, they surround me. I actually lose them. This is how stupid and type of dire straits I was in, bro. I lose them when I'm like, if I can just get to Detroit, they'll call off the chase and I'll be good, right? So I flying like a maniac. I do a Hail Mary. I literally, bro, did this, a Hail Mary, and blew through a red light doing 100. It was kind of a smaller side street, but I'm doing 100. And and I see him, it's gonna be red. So I'm just going right through it. Now I'm only half a mile from Detroit now. So I get to the half-mile mark, I cross Kelly, I'm in Detroit. I'm like, I'm good. So I weaved through some side streets, I lost the cop, I'm good to go. I ended up going to the freaking liquor store, or I mean the gas station at 6 Mile and Gratiot. I walk in the back, these two black kids that I know there that they sell and weed, and I usually would have bought in bulk, but at the time I was like, I'm going to get a couple bundles, couple $100 just to get me through. I walk in there and I see them and they go, this is the first thing they do. They're in the back of the store. The Chaldean or Arab who owns the place lets them hang out in the back by the video games and just sell dope all day. It's wintertime, you know. This is like February, first week of February. I walk back down and go, what's up, D? I'm going to get 2 bundles and a couple dimes and a couple dime bags of weed. And they look, first thing they do, go, man, Al, you all right, bro? I said, yeah, I'm good. Why, man? They're like, you ain't looking so good, bro. I'm like, because I just did this high-speed chase. I'm freaking out. So they give me the dope. I can walk up to the counter, right? And I go to buy a blunt. I buy a blunt for the weed. And the Chaldean owner knows me, too. He goes, what's up, man? He says, what's up, man? You don't look so good, bro. I said, man, just give me the freaking blunt. I go in the car, and I start breaking the blunt open. So I roll a joint, and all of a sudden I hear, and you know that sound, and it's coming right down the road. I stomp on the gas, cut the wheel, drive over the lawn, smash off a parked car, a car that's at the light, sitting at the light, bounce off it, bang, crash, get another high-speed chase, insane through the city high-speed chase, lose them again, crash, get out, run, and then they surround me the whole block, and there's like 50 cops, and they get me, and they beat my ass to a pulp, bro. They beat my ass to a pulp. And they cuffed me, stomped me out, and I'll never forget, it was 6 black cops all going, why didn't you shoot, white boy? Why didn't you shoot? Wham, wham, pistol whipping me. I'm cuffed. I'm going, tough guys, huh? Why didn't you shoot? What? They wanted me to shoot so they could shoot back and kill me, you know? But I threw my gun. When they surrounded me, they're like, getting it out there. And I took the gun and I threw it. I had a 6-hour 40 cal, and I dumped it. You know, I'm not trying to die. So, anyways, got me to the police station. I had to go in the emergency room, get all stitched up. I was all busted up, bleeding all over the place. The feds came in and tried to get me to cooperate right away. They said I could go home to my fiance, and you know, I wasn't going to cooperate, and that was really the end of the game. So this is where I guess the best part of my story begins, because essentially, I end up in prison. Well, I'm fighting my case. I fight my case for 22 months. About 22 months, so about 19 or 20 of those months, I was in solitary confinement. I was in the hole. So I was only in.
Why?
Started with me smashing some kid's eye in. Some little black kid stole 2 Hostess pies. He wasn't a little kid. He was actually kind of stocky, but he was young. He was only like 20, 22-year-old kid, and I was like 29. And I came back from church and I noticed my boxes moved, and I said to my bunkie, you know, who took? So, and I saw there's 2 pies missing. And I said, and I went on the rampage. I'd say, who the frick went in my box? I'm gonna stomp your mother effing head in. I'm going crazy, bro. I broke the TV. You only got 1 TV in the county jail on the table. I kicked it off. I stood on the table. Boom! I kicked it off the table. You bitch ass mother! Who went in my cell? Who got the ball? I took my box of commissary. I set it on there. I said, I dare someone to come take it like a man. Come get it like a man. It's right there. Just take it. Come get it, mother effers. And they're all a bunch of pussies. I said, you all pussies. I bought your soul. You punk ass mother effers. You did that. And they locked me down. They locked the unit down. The cops see in the tower. Locked down. Everybody locked down. And then they come to me like, Lindbloom, what's your problem? I said, somebody stole from me. They're like, let it go. I said, okay. Then they click, and they let us back out like an hour later. And I'm sitting there, and I see this. I'm looking at this little black kid. His name is Wheezy, and he's sitting. He's got a razor in his hand. He's holding a razor, and he's leaning against the wall with his back to the wall, and he's just watching me. And his hand is shaking. His hand is like this, trembling. I walk right up in his face. I go, bro, why are you shaking, bro? What'd you do? I didn't do it, bro. It was my bunkie, man. I didn't have nothing to do with it. My bunkie did it. I said, your bunkie did it, huh? So I walked upstairs. Into his cell, and the bunkie was a cocky punk. Like, I'd seen him punk out a couple little square white boys. He's always acting tough, and he's always acting like trying to house poker games and beast on everyone. He's one of those. And in my mind, I knew I could stomp him with ease, but I'm just this little punk. So I went in the cell, and I said, hey, man, you steal something from me? He's like, no, man, you steal nothing. I said, well, I'm going to go through your box and check. Oh, man, now you're disrespecting me, dog. I said, I'm disrespecting you. Blam! And I just and caved his orbital socket in. Just boom. Like hit one shot and crushed him, bro. Knocked him unconscious. And then I dragged him by the ankle, by his feet, out into the unit. And I said, anybody else want to steal from me? Anybody else want to steal? And this dude's just leaking everywhere, bro. I know I crushed his orbital socket because I had to pay restitution for it. Like, I actually had to pay for the ambulance ride. But I got the medical report, which said surgically repaired crushed orbital socket. You know what I'm saying? I saw the dude in the county jail like a year later, and he still had a black eye, bro. He still had a black eye. I was cuffed up coming back from court, and they were moving him. He was still in there for whatever he was. And I see him, and he's got a big scar and a black eye. And he's like, what's up, Al? He says, like, hey, buddy, what's up, Al? I said, freaking guy. So that's how I started in the hole. But when I was in the hole, I got into it with these cops. I got into it with the cops multiple times. They beat me up. The cops beat me up in there, had me cuffed up and stomped me out bad off camera. Stomped me out, man. Freaking like smashed me. I had to get stitches in like 3 different places on my head. So when I get done, after they stomped me out, it really was no big. This is why I'm coming back from court. I got a $5 million bond, bro. I'm facing 30 years in prison, and they're so because I was a high public inmate.
Risk.
They always put me in my own cell. I was classified as level 9. I don't even know what that means. It just means I've been in the hole for months and months and months. And I'm in a black and white striped suit while everybody else wears blues and greens. And they're like, when I get off the bus, I drive in my own bus. I'm completely isolated from all the other inmates. So they're walking me back to my cell in the hole, and there's 5 of them surrounding me. I'm belly shackled, ankle shackled, and cuffed behind my back. And the cop is yanking my shoulder. He's just like, and I'm just like, I said, bro, I know where we're going, man. I know where we're going. Relax, dude. He said, shut up, inmate. Shut up. Ain't no talking. And I said, oh, I know what your problem is, bro. You got a little dick. You got a little dick syndrome. And the other cop started laughing, but he didn't think it was funny. And then they kind of all gave each other the look like, yeah, we got him. So there's cameras in the hallway, but when you get on the elevator, there's no cameras. So the second I stepped on the elevator, like a second, my foot, even stepped 1 foot in it, I felt this. On the back of my head, and I heard, stop resisting. And they just started stomping me, bro. And they stomped me out. And so I get back to the cell, and they're like, turn around so you can uncuff against the bars, So I got to back up against the bars, and they uncuff my wrist. And then I turn around and said, yeah, come in here and get me now, mother effers. All 5 of you punk-ass mother effers. I said, you punk-ass bitch, you're going to jump me 5-on-1 while I'm cuffed. I said, but freaking come in now. And they all walk away, of course. I'm bleeding all over the place. And this is where one of the most interesting parts of the story is. I was sitting there, beat up. They threw a whole bucket of mop water on my bunk just to be dicks. They took all my mail and my pictures that my girlfriend had sent me, all my mail from my friends and family, and they threw it on my bunk and dumped a 5-gallon bucket of mop water over my bunk. And it was cold in there. It was wintertime, so it was real cold. It made a mess. And I'm sitting there bleeding. I'm out of breath. I'm hurt, dripping blood, leaking blood all over, just pouring blood. And I remember thinking to myself, man, dude, like I can't do 30 years like this, bro. I'd rather just check out, just check out. And I've never been scared. Like I could tell you stories. I've been shot. I've been stabbed. I've been in 7 gun battles, bro. I've been shot twice, stabbed in the chest. But I had if you look right here, there's a scar on my head where I was hit with a baseball bat. I mean, I'm not scared to die. I never was. I'm like, I'd rather just be dead, man. Let's go in the shower, slip my wrist, check out. God bless everybody. I'm sorry. And then I saw a letter from my grandmother on the bed, and I remember distinctly in the letter, she said, honey, you write the most beautiful letters. You could be a writer. And it clicked, bro. It clicked that God, right then at that moment, I felt God tell me, no, you not just could be a writer. You are a writer. I made you to be a writer. You're going to be a writer, and you're going to take this time, and you're going to become this world-class writer. And I believed it from that moment. And so from that day on, I sat there for the next 14 months, staring at the ceiling, and I wrote 3 novels in my mind, bro. 3. And one of those novels was called To Be a King. It was about a fictional mafia family. Wasn't my favorite novel, but I just happened to like contrive this story, right? And I wrote them start to finish. And then when I got to prison, this is where things really get really interesting. Then I get to prison, and a guy who I robbed of a bunch of weed writes me a letter. This is crazy. A dude who I knew was a big bodybuilder, kind of not a tough guy, but it looked like a tough guy. I had him front me 10 pounds of weed, and then I deboed him. I just said, I'm not paying you, right? And what are you going to do? You can't whoop me, beat it. He was a nice guy. He said, really, you're not going to pay me? I said, no, whatever. So that was that. Fast forward 5 years, I get a letter from him. He says, you know, I'm a born-again Christian now. I live in Chicago. I married a girl from my church choir. I saw in the newspaper you got sentenced to all that time in prison, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, man, I felt really bad for you, bro.
How much time, by the way? How much time?
13 years, 13 to 50.
Okay.
So they gave me 13 to 50. So he says, I felt horrible. But the next day on my way to work, I was driving, and it hit me, man. Something hit me, and I never felt this before except one time. Except the moment I gave my life to Christ in church, only one other time I felt this. I felt God saying to me to look out for you. I don't know why. I don't know what the purpose is. But God said to reach out to you, and there's something I can do for you. I don't have much money, but I can help you. If there's anything I do to help you. This random dude I had robbed, right? Who I liked, but I just, I wasn't close with. He was an older guy. I said, yeah, bro, could you send me a few bucks so I can buy some paper and pens? I want to start writing books. He said, yeah, I can do that. He sends me $30. I spent the next year writing a book. I sent him the book. He was in Chicago. He got a good job as a headhunter down there. And he'd drive the train to work every day. And he would read this book on the way to work. And he read the book and he was freaking blown away. And he's just like, oh my God, bro, I can't believe you wrote this book. This is so good. Like, I'm addicted to this book. I just can't believe you wrote this. This is so good. So now he's in my camp and he's supporting me and he likes it. And every year, about once a year, I'd send him a book and he'd read it, and he just kept going, wow, like these are getting better and better. And the guys in prison are saying the same thing. There's big readers in prison. Guys love to read. There's a lot of them in prison. They're just like, wow. And they're reading the books and they're going, bro, like I'm getting people, Matt, that are going, dude, I've been in prison for 20 years. I've read like thousands of books. This is the best book I've ever read. I can't believe the best book I've ever read is the dude who locked down the hall from me, wrote it. Like, that's crazy, man. What are you doing in prison? And I'd be like, it's an idiot. And I was a loser just like you. I screwed up. I don't know, what I'm saying? I'm here. Like, how do you have talent like that and end up in prison? I'm like, And anyways, so I'd write these book. So this is where it gets really crazy. Fast forward to year 6. On year 6, I finished my 6th novel. This is the To Be a King one, the one about a mafia family, the one about a fictional Detroit mafia family, right? It was my 6th favorite story that I'd created in my mind. I got to it on year 6. I write the book. I send it to my boy Joe. Again, he's like, oh my God, bro, this is so good. This is incredible. This is amazing, blah, blah, blah. So he starts sharing it with my other buddy. He's saying the same thing. This is incredible. This is amazing. They end up starting a Facebook page for me. I don't even know what Facebook is. It's 2009. I don't even know what it is. I've been in prison 6 years. I heard of it like on TV and stuff, but I don't know what it is or how it works. And I said, what is it? And they're like, we're going to hook you up. We're trying to connect you with some girls from the neighborhood and some friends and maybe get some letters and da. So they created a Facebook page. On it, they said, A, I'm a Christian. B, that I'm writing books in prison. I'm a writer. Let's put it out there. First thing that happens is I start getting fan mail. They put sample chapters of my book, 6th book, the Mafia book, on Facebook. And I start getting fan mail, so much fan mail, that the warden calls me in and says, what's going on? I said, what's what? He's like, all this JPay fan mail coming in. What is this? You got a Facebook? And I said, yeah. And like, you can't have one. I'm like, why not? There's not a policy or a law that says I can't have a Facebook page. He says, you better knock it off. You want to go get home, go home. I still got 5-6 years left. I'm like, what do you do? There's no law. Well, I'm not going to do it. So out of spite, they rode me to the worst prison in Michigan and the 2nd most violent prison in America at the time, Kinross Correctional Facility. 3 days after that meeting, they put me in a bus, a 17-hour ride up to Kinross, and I spent the next 4 years in the worst freaking nightmare, blood, hell, or whatever. But anyways, it didn't change anything. So all of a sudden one day, I'll wrap it up. The best part about my story happens next. The best part, by far, is this is the good part. All the other part is entertaining, but not really good. So a woman who worked for a publisher in academic publishing, but she worked in publishing, who saw my Facebook profile. She was also a new Christian. She had been raised Muslim. She sees my profile, sees that I'm writing books. So she decides to look at these sample chapters, and she reads them. She says, wow, these sample chapters are actually really good, you know? So she writes me a letter and says, you know, I work for a publisher. I have friends in commercial fiction. Maybe they can help you get published if the book's any good. If you want to have your friend or somebody send me a copy of the book, manuscript, PDF, I'll take a look at it. If it's any good, maybe I can help you get published. And I'm just like, hallelujah. You know, think about how like lucky I felt for that. Like, you got to be kidding me, right? It's insane. So I have my friend turn the book into a PDF and send it to the girl. The girl's cute too. She's cute because sends me a picture. And so she reads the book in 3 days. But it's both volumes of my book, To Be a King, volume 1 and 2. So it's 1,100 pages. She reads both of the volumes in 3 days on her phone and iPad. And she writes me a letter and basically says it's the best book she's ever read. But let me preface it by saying she's been obsessed with books all her life. She lived a horrible childhood. Her father was like a tyrannical, abusive Muslim tyrant who had beat her and mentally abused her, and her escape was reading books. So all her life, she was just obsessed with reading her since she was like 4. She worked at a bookstore when she was in high school. She had a literary scholarship when she was in high school. She loved books. Now she works in publishing. And she tells me that my book, is the best book that she's ever read, and she calls me a unicorn. Now I'm just like, holy crap, right? Me and this girl become pen pals, and we start writing each other. And the crazy part is, she's now in the other room, and then she's my wife. She ends up waiting 6.5 years for me. We fall in love through letters. We never even talk. We don't never get on the phone, nothing. We just write letters for a year, fall in love, very madly in love, and she commits her life to marrying me before we ever speak a word on the phone. We do admit to love. We do. She's walking by right. Hi, honey.
Hi.
And so she basically says, I would wait 20 years for you. I'll wait 7. So she waits the 7 years, 6.5 years for me. And then the day after I get out, I marry her in a small town courthouse. And then we both get baptized together in Lake Huron 20 minutes later. But remember, I told you that guy, Joe, the one who God told him, you know,
Yeah.
I want you to support him. He was one of the 4 guys who picked me up from prison the day that I get out. He was one of the guys who drove me to my wife 5 hours away from the prison. She was cooking us a feast. And so 2 of my boys, you know, drove me to her. You know, two of my boys were from the neighborhood. They just came to hug me up and take me to breakfast. But my other 2 boys drove me 5 hours to Maria, who was waiting for the feast. And then the next day, those 2 homeboys, Joe being one of them, were witnesses at my wedding. And Joe, who was like an ordained minister now, baptized me. So that same guy I robbed of 10 pounds of weed, 5 years later, God told him, I don't know why, but God is telling me to support you or help you. I don't even know why. And that same dude, 6 years after that, starts a Facebook page that leads this woman into my life. And 7 years after that, he picks me up from prison and baptizes me. Is that crazy? So all of that to move forward, I published these books, To Be a King, volume 1 and 2. And people say they're the next Godfather. So you get like hundreds of people on the reviews are going, dude, this guy Gunnar wrote the next Godfather, or this is the best mafia story that's been told in 50 years. Like, we've been waiting for this story for 50 years. You read the reviews. You can go there. To Be a King on Amazon. I got between the 2 books nearly 300 5-star reviews. There's a lot. I got a lot of good reviews. And so I did that, and then I started an apparel company called Our Thing Apparel, kind of a loosely inspired, but it takes your city in account. Wherever your city is, you're from Florida, so you might have Fort Lauderdale or Tampa or whatever, Miami. It's your city, our thing. So we do everything. It's custom to your city. But here's the thing, man. Now I started a publishing company, and I'm a ghostwriter, and I do. Not huge ticket, but like $20,000-$30,000 ghostwriting, and we do publishing. We help. We're a publisher too, and I'm a screenwriter, so I've been writing some scripts, getting paid well. But I also just started a Christian radio station. But it's an alternative type of Christian radio station. It's like people like you, me, people like, I don't know if you're Christian, but it's like people like myself who have kind of remarkable testimonies, hosting shows, interviewing people about other remarkable testimonies, or just crazy things that you experienced in life, God. I think if you were to ask most Christians, they've all had at least one miracle happen in their life, maybe more. Are you a Christian?
Yeah. I
So
would say, well, I mean, I was raised Catholic, but we go to, like, I've never been baptized,
no,
but
no,
we
no,
go
no.
to
That's okay. No, no. I was raised Catholic too. I'm not a Catholic. You know what I'm saying? I'm just a Christian.
yeah. But we go to like a
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
non-denominational church
yeah, yeah.
on
Me too.
Sunday.
As long as you
You
believe
know,
in Jesus, that's all that matters. That's it.
listen, vastly different than
Oh, vastly
going to
different.
mass.
Vastly different.
Like,
But the thing is, if I was to ask you, Matt, to go back in your life and name at least one miracle that's happened in your life, I can guarantee you right now you would say, well, dude, there was this time and this happened, and there's no way mathematically or probability it could have happened or should have happened, but it did. I was able to survive or avoid. Like, I've had quite a few, but I had one time. I'll give you a good example. I was in the middle of doing a drug deal, negotiating the price. The guy was giving me a hard time. He was trying to up the price to the last minute. Got the window down, summertime. I'm looking at him. I got a gun here in my waist. And all of a sudden I feel something press against my head behind me, like over here, because I'm talking to the dude in the passenger seat of my car. And I feel this, and I hear, don't move, mother effer. And so I feel don't move, and I go to look, and it's the barrel of a pistol. So the guy is standing above my car, but he's got the pistol against my head, like just standing there with the pistol. And I hear, don't move, mother effer. And he goes to rack a round into the gun, an automatic. Why you wouldn't have a round in the gun already, you're a flipping dumbass. But he goes, and it jams. The gun goes, and I can see it because I'm looking dead at it. So because don't move my lever, and I got to turn, and he goes, and I see the bullet sticking out. So I pull my gun, all in literally 1 second or less. I grab his hand with the gun, pull my gun. I'm looking at him because I don't know if this dude's got a gun too, because I know it's a robbery. So this dude might be pulling on me. So I'm going to shoot him in the face. Anyway, regardless, I grab this guy's hand with strong, and I like crunch his hand and start twisting. I'm this fast, and I'm about to freaking blast this dude. And the guy next to me, he sees me coming with the gun. He dives out of the car, so he don't got. So I reach. Now this guy's still kind of struggling with his gun because he's got two hands. I reach the gun up, aim in his face, pull the trigger. His hand goes limp. The gun falls in the back seat. Gun falls in my back seat. I throw the car and drive. Peel off. I get the gun, and I get about 3 houses, and I hear one shot, bang. I'm so mad that they tried to rob me that I slam on the brakes, open the door. This is how crazy I was, bro. I'm gone. I could have been gone. I hear one shot, bang. I'm like 2 houses down the way. I slam on the brakes, jump in the car, stand up in the street, and I take aim like this. And my dad was a gun dealer, so I shot a lot, like hundreds of thousands rounds. I prep, and I'm taking aim. Bang, bang, bang. Broad daylight, Saturday afternoon. There's 4 of them. The dude that I shot originally, who had the gun, he's crawling around on the ground, rolling around. The other dude, I'm just going, bang, bang, bang. They're running and diving and trying to get away. Boom, 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 boom. I emptied my magazine. But I lived. And the moral of the story is God had God was not today. I have a feeling they were probably going to kill me. You know what I'm saying? And the guy with the racked around said, don't move my lever. Was going to get me. I took a baseball bat to the head, got stabbed and jump beat, whatever. And I was almost dead, bro. I ran for my life. I got away. I was like 5 blocks away, barefoot, bleeding, no shirt. Had a bat broken over my head, wrapped around my head. I'd been stabbed in the chest, hit with a bottle, hit with a 2x4, and punched and kicked like 20 times, jumped. And I'm walking down the street, and I go to try to get some water out of a faucet. I'm dying, bro. It's almost over. You know, I'm trying to get some water. That's all I want. And some black woman comes running out of her house. She says, hey, man, get away from my house. And I said, I just want some water. And she says, damn, baby, what happened? You get run over by a car? Or you get in a car accident? I said, no, I just jumped. So she walks me up on her porch, gives me a glass of water, tells me to put a towel over my head because that's where the most blood was coming from. She didn't even see where I was stabbed in the chest. And but I did. I knew I'd been stabbed because I actually stuck my finger in the hole to see how deep it was, and it was all the way in there. Like I felt my lung breathing. Like I stuck my finger in a hole, and when I was breathing, I could feel my lung against my finger. And so I'm like, this ain't good. And anyways, and so she called the ambulance, and I blacked in and out. And anyways, I lived. The crazy part is I went back to try and find that lady to thank her, and I couldn't find her. Couldn't find her house, couldn't find her. And I still see her house to this day perfectly. It's a white house with green awning, green trim, vacant lot next door, and 2 green chairs on the porch. I went back and drove up and down every block for like an hour trying to figure out the house is gone, vanished. That's why I think, I don't know what to think. Was it a miracle? Was it God, an angel? Maybe I imagined it. I don't know. It was a weird thing, bro. But anyways, I lived. That's the moral of the story is I lived. And so God had a purpose. And so now I think I have reached a point in my life where I have reached my main purpose, which is to inspire people to, never give up, chase their dreams, be their best them. God first, put God first, and everything else will fall into place. You can do anything. I gave you a pretty detailed account of my life, what a scumbag I was and how I ended up that way or whatever. But ultimately today, I am happily married to a beautiful, amazing woman. I live on a 20-acre homestead in northern Michigan. I'm not rich. I'm not rich by any means. I hope to be pretty soon, but I got a dirt bike and a 4-wheeler, and I got a car that drives, and I got we got a couple cars, and I got a beautiful home and some property. I go hunting, fishing all the time. I just got back from camping for a week. I live a good, wholesome, Christian, honest life. So compared to the life that you heard me talk about, leading up to prison or before prison, it's like night and day, bro. It's like it's miraculous, really, the fact that and now a documentary on all this is being made that starts shooting in a couple of weeks, and the main focal point is the redemption, is my love story with my wife, and how I was able to in prison, just that moment when I got jumped, and I was like, you know what, man, I'm just going to kill myself. And God said, no, man, no, you're not. You know what I'm saying? You're going to keep going, and you're going to do something. And I'm going to give you this talent, this gift, and you're going to run with it, and it's going to change your life. My books I wrote, by the way, I wrote 9 novels when I was in prison. I wrote another one since I've been home. I'm going to publish that this year. It's a political thriller. But, if you read my books, bro, Matt, if you read my books, you're going to be like, how the frick, how, like, you'll wonder, like, how is this guy already not, like, a household name? I get that every time somebody reads the books. They message me. I had a dude, I'll end it on this. I had a guy, his name is Matt Simoncini. He's the CEO of Lear Corporation. Read my books on his private jet, asked me to lunch. I met him for lunch. He shook my hand and said, Gunnar, you're the greatest writer in the world nobody knows about. And I said, well, I'm working on that. You know what I'm saying? Nobody gave me the blueprint, whatever. And that guy said, bro, he said to me, how are you not a household name, bro? After reading those books, like you're literally like one of the best writers in the world. You should. I said, yeah, it takes money. It takes money to advertise, to a book. And he said, how much money does it take? I said, I threw a number out there. I'm like, I don't know, probably to become a world-renowned bestseller and get it out there, probably $25,000 with the marketing. He's like, take a check. And I'm like, dude, I'm not looking for charities. What I said, basically he implied, it's like, I can help you. I'm like, I said, I wouldn't want your money as a charity, but I would be willing to go into business with you. And he said, okay, let's have a meeting about that. And then we had a meeting. I said, I'll sell you 25% of all 9 of my novels plus 25% of my apparel company for a number. And when I told him the number, $250,000, he said, that's the number I figured you'd say. He said, the problem is I got a squeaky clean reputation. I'm the CEO of a Fortune 200 company. I'm getting, and he's like, what would the world think of me? And by the way, he let me drive his Ferrari. After we left lunch, he gave me the keys to his Ferrari and he filmed it on Facebook Live. I said, would you film this this $300,000 Maranello Ferrari? Because I said, is that your Ferrari? He said, yeah. I'm like, that's on my bucket list to drive one. He goes, here, I just picked it up today. He hands me the keys. I said, you serious? He's like, yeah, bro. least I can do, man, for the books. You gave me that entertainment for them books, amazing books. So I get in there and I burn rubber and I go crazy. And he's like, I'm like, what? You never broke the tires loose yet? He's like, no, I picked it up freaking 45 minutes before I came to lunch. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I go, well, I only get one shot with it. It's yours. I'm going to let it rip. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, he just said, I can't afford to, go into business with a guy who's fresh out of prison, ex-gangster, tied to the mob, blah, 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 blah. The guy made $14 million a year, you know what I mean? His career and stuff. You don't risk that because what if he gets out that, oh, yeah, Matt Simoncini just partnered up for a movie with a freaking ex-gangster who's fresh out of mob. And by the way, he knew one of my aunts. They lived on the same block. So, anyways, the moral of the story is his reaction was the same that everybody's. I usually text him, or he texts me every year for Christmas. He texted me this year. He texted me. And he says, Merry Christmas. When's volume 3 of the book coming out? So I get this all the time because everybody wants volume 3 of To Be a King. And I tell him, when I get a movie deal for volume 1 and 2 or 1 and 2, then I'll write volume 3. I just got it yesterday. Just somebody said, man, these need to be made a movie. You need volume 3. And I'm like, no, I'll write it when volume 1 gets made. Because once I have volume 1 made a movie, then I can get paid on volume 3. The book deal will be like,
yeah.
They'll give me a freaking ton of money. Now, otherwise, what's the point? I'm not making that much from the book. Anyways, Matt, is there anything else you'd like to ask before, I know you probably have things to do. But.
No. I mean, other than, so where can you buy the book? Like, I mean, I'm assuming you can get it on Amazon, right?
Yeah, Amazon. Let's go to Amazon. To Be a King. To Be a King on Amazon. It's got almost perfect 5-star for reviews. Check it out. And then,
where are you? Where are you advertising? Like, are you just doing like social media, like TikTok and Instagram, that sort of thing?
I don't even really advertise much anymore. I'm so focused on other things. I should be, and I will, but I make way more money from my publishing and the radio and all that stuff. So it's not like, but I have 2 new novels coming out this year. One is called Snowman Chronicles, is about 2 huge smugglers. 2 huge, like you can't even, like massive. Basically, one of them's uncle is a cartel boss in Colombia, and another one's uncle is a mob guy in Detroit, and they connect the mafia to the cartel, but it's on a global scale because the mafia is connected all over the world. There's elements of the mafia all over, and anyways, it creates this huge network of distribution. It's called Snowman Chronicles. These 2 dudes, and they end up making about $1 million a day at the height of their career, but that's nothing because the cartels are making so much more. Anyway, so that's in the next novel. And then a political thriller called Blindsight 2030 is about this dystopian in the year 2030. Basically, China and Russia attack us with a cyber attack, and EMP attack, economic attack, collapse us. We fall apart on each other. We start killing each other, whatever. So there's that. And but no,
that sounds very reasonable.
Right, exactly, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The way things are going.
Exactly. People, wait till you hear how I did it. Wait till you hear how I orchestrate it. When people read, like my beta readers and stuff, they read it, they're like, dude, bro, like it's scary how realistic and possible this could be. If they did exactly what you're describing in the book, America would end. And like I said, because once they do the economic EMP and cyber attack, America implodes on itself within about 6 weeks. And then it's chaos. Then we start all killing each other for medication, for food, for water, for whatever. It's over. And then we kill each other for the next year. And then there's only maybe 15% of the population left, in which case then our enemies just come ashore and say, well, we're taking your resources now. And whoever's left, either get out of our way or be our indentured servants, slaves, whatever. Be slave labor. Anyways, so I got that. And then, or you check out my radio station, people. It's called Conviction Radio. So you just go convictionradio.com. There's a lot of cool shows on there. My show is called Against All Odds. It's about remarkable achievements, remarkable comebacks, remarkable accomplishments, just really remarkable stories. I just had Tyler Kavanaugh on, the Navy SEAL dude, Chris Cavallini, who's a real popular influencer, ex-Navy diver dude, but really created a multi-millionaire, made many millions of dollars. Guys who went from nothing to multi-millionaires. Some are Christian stories, some are not. But, maybe I'll have you on there, you know what I'm saying? Because you have a good Against All Odds story, too. So that's, and then there's a lot of, like another guy who did 10 years in prison. His show's called Rock Bottom. He's very Christian, like kind of biblical based. But there's a lot of shows that they're not like, not Bible studies or sermons. They're just people saying, hey, man, listen, I got to the point in life that this happened and this happened and this happened. And then God showed himself to me through this way. And next thing you know, I started following Christ. My life changed. And here I am. And, and they're giving these examples, really interesting, compelling, inspiring shows. So anyone who you'd be shocked by how much you would like some of these shows. They're so different. So go to convictionradio.com and just hit play. If you want to look at our programming, on the home page, just scroll down and there's like show art for every show. I think we have 22 shows. There's news at the top of every hour. We're growing every day, onboarding new shows. Our goal is to have at least 100 more shows by the end of the year. So it's pretty cool, and check that out. And then you can check out my apparel, Arthing Apparel at arthingapparel.com, original gangster apparel. And if whatever your city is, it will be on the back. So you can, like we do like 10 major cities, that's print on demand. So when you buy it, it gets made and shipped. But if you're buying something embroidered, like a hat or a jacket or a tracksuit or a duffel bag, you can put anything on there. You can put whatever your city is there. You can even put the name of your business, your name, your city, whatever. So you can do that at Arthing Apparel at arthingapparel.com. And lastly, anybody who has publishing needs, if you're writing a book, publishing a book, editing a book, go to whitepinepublishing.com. Name of the company is White Pine Publishing and Consulting. We do everything from A to Z. I do ghostwriting and screenwriting and all that. And the last thing, I guess, stay on the lookout for the documentary. It probably won't be available until the beginning of next year. It's a long process, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of money, time, and energy. It's going to be probably a 10-month process, you know what I'm saying? It's funny because, we have 10 days worth of filming and then 10 months worth of editing.
Yeah.
That's how it works. Have you ever done anything like that?
I mean, I've taken part in some, like series documentaries, where there are episodes and we even shot one for one of my books. They shot a sizzle reel.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the sizzle reel took it's 3 minutes, bro.
Yeah, I know.
It's 3 minutes. It took like
2
3
months.
months to edit it.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
It took. So I already know that, shooting a doc, like I'm in the middle of doing a sizzle right now, and it's just dragging and drag. Of course, they're doing it between other shoots they're doing other things,
Yeah.
But they'll shoot it once and then they'll shoot it again, or, re-edit it and edit it and edit it. And it's like, nothing that's done quickly. No,
like we started this whole journey a couple of years ago, and originally we were going to start with a TV series, and then they're like, well, let's start with this doc, and it's been a crazy ride, but it's been fun because I got to meet Armand Asante. I got to spend 6 days at Armand Asante's house. You know who Armand Asante is, right?
Yes.
Yes. I just talked to him yesterday, and he's going to be narrating in part in the doc, but I got to spend time, 2 different times, 3 days at his house. That was pretty cool. Flown out to LA a couple times. But anyways, it's a lot of work. And I'm just, even for me, man, like 10 days worth of shooting is like, dude, 10 days. Really, man? Like, I'd rather be fishing. But, in the end, if the documentary gets done well and made and it's successful, and then I could sell a lot of books and I could make a lot of money and get my career ball taken to the next level. You know what I'm saying? And then we'll go from there. Maybe after we release the documentary, I'll come back on your show, and we can talk about it. We can talk about the doc.
Yeah.
There's a lot, dude. I breezed over a ton of stuff in this because there's only so much time. But if you were to come back and say, Gunnar, let's just talk about a couple of different criminal enterprises you were involved in. Tell me about them, and I'll go into detail about how they work, the mechanics of them, and those are kind of interesting and funny for people to kind of see, because a lot of people don't realize, the mechanics behind, some of these criminal. Most of the crap that I did was not criminal mastermind stuff. You know what I'm saying? I was more of a guy who would I'll pound a square peg into a round hole and just make it fit. You know what I'm saying? I'm kind of a violent. You were a guy that was more of a criminal mastermind, right?
I mean, I think, you know, it was borrowing money, it was fraud. So there's a lot of you have to have a certain skill set to
Yeah.
do what I did. So there's a lot more thought in preparing. Like I don't see a bank and think that'd be a good mark and then run in and rob the bank. Like it would take, you know, I gotta to try and borrow $500,000 or $1 million. I gotta do the whole setup. I
So
gotta get
much
fake
smarter, man.
IDs, fake stop. So
It,
yeah, so much smarter. I still did 13 years. How much
oh,
do you do?
yeah.
13 years?
13.3. Man, dude, I can't believe they gave you 13 years for that.
No, they gave me 26 years. I did 13.
Why would they give you 26 years for like identity fraud or whatever?
Well, I mean, one, I was on the run. Well, it was, you know, it wasn't just identity. It was bank fraud. It was, you know, it's all the different, you know, bank
Yeah,
fraud,
there's no
wire fraud,
violence.
money laundering. No, I agree. But I was on the run and I got sentenced just as the housing crisis was hitting.
Mm.
So I became kind of a scapegoat
Yeah.
for, you know,
Fall
and
guy.
there had been 2 Dateline episodes on me. I was on American Greed. So you can imagine there was just a ton of press, and it was like, hey, let's make an example of this guy.
Setting a precedence. This guy's got to pay the price. They did that with Seth too. Seth Ferrante. He was a guy who you know, he was a product of the drug war on drugs. You know, they got busted with some acid. You know, like we're gonna give him 27 years. Really, some 20-year-old kid gets caught with some acid, and you're getting 27 years. Like, there's no way a guy like you should have got for 27 freaking years. Man. That's great. Fed time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at least there's that.
Yeah. At least it was air conditioned.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. State time would have been. You don't want state time. But I mean, I would have loved to have done Fed time. I heard the Fed's is pretty bad these days as far as food and accommodations and stuff, but it's still a different level of. And you know, states you got lunatics and rapists and killers and murderers, scumbags, low level guys, violence. This is a lot more violence. But
you always talk to the guys who would come from the state to the Fed, and they'd be like, "Look, I'd rather do 5 years in the Fed than do 2 years in the state."
Yeah.
You know? So they're like, it's, you know, but I didn't know any better. It still sucked.
It's cool. It's because it's so much more dangerous in the state. You know, it's a
well, you got
a
lot of violent criminals.
Yeah.
And I was in a medium and a low, but I'm not a part of a gang. I don't talk shit about people. I don't run up debts. I don't gamble.
Right.
You know, I'm teaching GED and the real estate class. So, you know, I didn't have any problem. I hear these horror stories of being in the state or being in the pen, and I'm like, thank God I didn't fucking end up in one of those places. I should have never even gone to the medium. I was in the medium for 3 years. Should have never been there. Right. Every counselor, I would walk in, they'd open my jacket and they'd look at it and they go, "The fuck are you doing here?"
Yeah, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
I was in Max security for 7 years. Yeah. Well, all of my whole bit I was in Max security, but they have a level 2 and 4 and then 1, and I was in level 4 for 4.5 years, which is like your max. You're 22 hours a day locked up, and then they dropped me down to the level 2, which is still max, but it's but you get like your own key to your cell. They only lock you down during count time or at night, so it's a little more movement and stuff like that, but it's still max. And it sucks, but yeah, it's a high stress environment, and everybody's on eggshells because it's just so much violence and danger, and because the mental problems of so much anger, that's why when you're in a Fed joint, like you in a medium or low Fed joint, it's kind of like everyone's like, this is not so bad, you just make the best of it, do some writing, you do your teaching, you do whatever it is you do,
right.
Your cellmate is probably not in here for multiple murders. I mean, I probably had 10 monkeys that were murderers over the years. It's crazy. One of them used to sit there and talk to himself blah, 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 all night. He talked to himself in third person. Like he would say, "John, what are you doing?" "What do you mean, what am I doing? I'm sitting here working on my case. What are you doing?" "Man, I don't think you should work on your case." I mean, it was weird, man, but he was serious. His name was Cochran. His name is Stefan Cochran. I still remember his name, level 4, one of my first bunkies. Anyways, yeah. Well, hopefully, me and you will never see that place again. So we're, you know what I'm saying? Ever.
Listen, I get off probation in about, what's today? About 3 weeks.
Why are you on probation?
I was on probation for 5 years. I have supervised release for 5 years.
Oh, okay. Okay. You've been home 5 years?
In 3 more weeks.
Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I've been home going on 8 years. Yeah. That's crazy. Well,
It's so funny because I was going to say, like a month ago, my probation officer stopped by. And they'd pull my, they have to pull I have a financial crime, so they pull my credit and they have to see my bank account. Like I have to provide a packet every month. Well, she pulled my credit and she was like, "You have a new trade line. You took out a credit card for $7,000." And I went, and I said, "Well, if I can't spend more than $500 without permission." And I went, "Yeah." Well, I said, "Oh no," I said, I had to get a new computer for the podcast. And she goes, "How much was the computer?" And I go, $3,500. She goes, "It's $3,500." I said, "No, you know." She goes, "Why do you have a $7,000 credit card?" I said, "Because you apply for a credit line to get the computer. The computer was only $3,500, but they said, hey, you can spend up to $7,000."
Yeah.
I said, "I've already paid, the $3,500. I said, is all I spent." And she goes, "It's still over $500. She goes, "Matt, you cannot." And I go, "Look, it was for work. I didn't even think about it." She goes, "You're so close. You're so close to getting off
I
probation."
can't believe what douchebags they are.
Well, I mean, look, what I'm saying? Like, she's like, she's like, "I would have said yes, just don't do it again." She goes, "You're so close." And I remember thinking, like, she was so serious about it. I was thinking, bro, you're so close. Like, don't get your shit violated.
Yeah.
And she would have approved it. If I have to fly somewhere, I have to fill out a form. She always
Yeah, I
approves
did
it.
that.
But you know what I'm saying? What if you slip one day? You get so comfortable, you're like, "Oh, I'll be there tomorrow." Yeah, and then I drive to Miami.
Yeah, no.
They can violate you. I could go back to prison for a year.
No, I know. No, I didn't. There was a couple times where like I had to get permission to go on a camping trip, right? And while I was up there camping, like I had, it was, let's say for 5 days, but the weather was so nice and everything was good. I'm like, let's stay another day. Well, on the 6th day, my PO went to my house, knocks on the door. I'm not there. So when I get back, he's like, "Yo, where were you?" There's a note on the door. "I was here. Were you?" I told him, I said, "Man, listen, I was up there camping. I'm, 400 miles away out in the woods. I'm trout fishing." He's like, "You can't do that, bro. You got to tell him." He was cool, but he said, "You can't do that. I could have went back to prison. I have a 50-year tail, 50. So when I was on parole, they could have put me back in for 50 years. So I was like,
right.
So I had to act right. But my PO was pretty cool. He understood that I wasn't ever going back. I'm going to act right. I mean, he was an outdoorsman, so he liked fishing and hunting, and so did I. And I live up north in the middle of the woods and stuff, so he got it. Just walk the right. You're almost got a couple of weeks, bro, and then you can do whatever the frick you want. Then you go to Miami, and go on Fresh and Fit. That's what you need to do. You'd be good for Fresh and Fit.
Listen, I have a buddy who's reached out to them several times. They've said they want to interview me, but we've just never scheduled it. Like they're like, "Hey, what about this day?" And I'm like, "Well, first of all, I can't leave I can't be there in 4 days. It's in Miami.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get approved within 4 days.
Yeah.
Like, you have to give me a few weeks." And I had a podcast. I had like a podcast scheduled that day anyway, but that's not the point. It's like, you don't seem to understand. You have to give me a little bit of lead time.
Sometime. Well, hook me up because I need to get a hold of those guys, and I don't know how, because as we're promoting this thing, I'm pretty sure they would enjoy my story and they would like
Yeah.
And I have a really interesting take on love and dating in relationships. They probably won't agree with a lot of it, which is perfect for their podcast. I'm going to say, listen, bro, you think ass and titties and youth are what's important to a girl dipping your dick. That ain't nothing. Just come see me when you're 45, 50 and you're sick, you got cancer, you're in your bed, you're bankrupt, you get in a car accident. The fake titties and the ass, them chicks gone. And as long as the money's got you need to find a real woman who's going to have your back. Here's a woman you say, honey, here's the codes to the bank accounts, right? You handle the taxes. I'm busy. And you can trust her. And if she buys, honey, what's that? And I heard some crash. I'm like, and the only thing she's going to buy is like some gardening tools or something. She's not going to buy a $6,000 Coach bag or whatever because that ain't what she's into. I said, that's the type of woman you need to find. I was able to pull a high-value woman to wait 7 years for me from a prison cell, a woman who didn't have any kids, was a $100,000 a year sales executive for a New York publisher, and was willing to fall in love with me and wait 7 years for me to come home and marry me. I said, that should tell you something about my character, who I am. And said, your girls are gone the second you stop paying her rent and her car payment. That's it. I'm not saying that to them. I'm just saying that that's a lot of the guys that they deal with. You know, they're like, and they're all like, oh, well, they put the value on a woman. Once she's past 30 years old and childbearing, she has no worth. Well, all I'm looking for is a fake tits and ass. I'm like, bro, listen, you have no idea because you think that you're young. When you're 50 and you suddenly get a lump on your back and the doctor says, man, you got cancer, bro. You know, you're going to be fighting for the next couple of years. And that chick you can't take out to Miami nightclubs in the Lambo anymore, she ain't going to be there taking care of your ass. And you got a catheter and she gone. And but the chick that actually loves you, she's going to. So I would love to have that conversation with those guys. So if you can hook me up, you know what I'm saying? You know?
Yeah, they have a narrow-minded. They have a kind of a narrow mind. Like there's some of the stuff I agree with, and some of it
me
I
too.
don't. You know,
me too. I agree with most.
Yeah. I would say it's probably 80-20.
Yes.
But, you know, they're young.
Exactly.
And it plays to their audience.
Yes.
You know, it's like, you know,
well, here's another thing that Myron or Byron or whatever his name says. Are you going to use this part of the podcast? You could.
He probably.
I don't care if you do. You're welcome to. I don't care.
Colby will. He'll put whatever he wants in.
Like, I don't care. Use it all. I don't care. Myron. I think his name is Myron, right? I think I like him, but but there are some things he's really. First of all, I've heard him say multiple times, I don't care if the girl gets off. Like if you don't, if he doesn't care about giving the girl an orgasm, I say if you don't care about giving your girl an O, trust me, she's going to cheat on you. You're going to get worked like a punk and a simp your whole life. If you don't care enough to put enough effort and energy, or don't have the know-how or ability to make your girl have an orgasm, 100% you're going to get cheated on. 100%. You're not going to ever keep a girl around because you can't satisfy a girl. Now, in your mind, you're like, well, I got a Lamborghini and I make a bunch of money and I got a big house and I'm paying her rent, I'm paying her car. Yes, while you're at work, she's going to be getting dick from that dude over there that's actually laying the pipe like a man. So, I mean, you need to either take some classes, learn like some Kama Sutra type of stuff if you don't know how to make a girl hit. Oh, but I mean, like, I disagree with that. I'm like, I feel like if that's your partner and someone you care about, whether it's your girl, your wife, or whatever, you think your primary focus in the bed should be hers first, and then and then yours. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how you feel about that, but that's how I feel.
I'm easy,
huh?
Like I'm easy, yeah. So you've got to focus on her first,
right?
Because I'm good because I'm easy.
Me too. I can go out usually go out any time. But I'm going to make sure that she goes at least 2-3 times. And then I'm like, okay, I feel like I can go ahead and I'm good now. You know what I'm saying? Like she's satisfied. But the dude who just goes on and hump for 30 seconds, goes and then throws her away and says, all right, I'm going to have a sandwich. What you think that chick thinks of you? First thing she's going to do is as soon as you walk out of the room, she's texting her boyfriend. Like, you know, but you're the dummy who's going to be paying her car note, her rent, her bills, and her house. She's going to act like she likes you, but that's what simps do. And he talks about simps all the time. That's the problem. The dudes talk about, they're always dogging on simps, but bro, you're the same thing. I would say that to their face. I would have that conversation with them and be like, listen, I like you guys. And like I said, 80% of what you say I agree with. The 20% that I don't agree with you is because of youth. You're just young. You just don't. Yeah. You don't know yet. One day you will. One day you'll get it, and you'll realize that a woman's value is not about her ass and titties. You know what I'm saying? You'll get to the point where that's one of the least things of that matter. You know what I'm saying? It's what's in here and what's in here. Well, it's always going to be what's in the heart. Like, is she good, honest, honorable, trustworthy, caring, kind? That's what matters. Second, is she intelligent? Can I carry on a conversation with her that's an intelligent conversation? Can we talk about politics or religion or science or travel or whatever it is? If the answer is no to any of those, we can't date. Right. We can have a sexual relationship if I'm young, but when I'm 40 years old or 50 years old, I'm not looking for a sexual relationship anymore. I had enough of those. You know what I'm saying? And so they're at the point now, and they're just in their early 20s or early 30s. They're still at that kind of. And here's the other thing about those dudes, and I like them, but like the Fresh is the other one. because he's kind of a dork, which I'm sure he'd admit. And I think they're both late bloomers. Byron said that he didn't lose his virginity until he was like 19 years old, and I think the other guy was probably somewhere in the same boat. So I think neither one of them like got a lot of girls when they were young, so they never got laid a lot. They got no attention from the girls. But then they started this podcast, and it blew up, and now they get all these skanky girls from Instagram. They throw themselves. That's awesome. But now they're like, this is great. I got all these girls, and they're like, but you're making up for lost time because most guys when they're 16 to 25, they have their fun. After that, they start slowing down. They may start looking for a serious girl. You maybe want to settle down, have a kid or whatever. But they're not. But they're going to get there. You mark my word, me and you. They will get to the point in the next 6, 7, 8, 10 years. We're like, dude, I've had enough of fake ass and tits. I'm ready for a decent woman. And if you treat them the way you see them now, so objectively, you won't find a good one. They won't want you. So because money can't buy love. You know what I'm saying? Unless ask your wife. You're married, right?
Yeah.
You got great teeth. You're a super handsome dude. You look like a male model. You didn't realize it. You're a pretty boy. I mean, they would have liked you in the state joint. I'm just saying, same other guy.
That's what I heard.
Some of those guys.
They tried. They were very friendly when I first got there.
I'm sure they were. Just handsome, pretty.
Everybody was offering. Everybody wanted to buy me tennis shoes and buy me commissary, and I was like, "No, I'm."
Are you joking or serious?
Oh no!
Oh yeah.
Multiple guys come up. You need anything? No, I don't need anything. I'm looking for me a friend. Well, it's a friendly place. You'll find somebody.
Yeah. I feel a little like slighted that they didn't try that on me, but I guess this is what I look like. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I wasn't no pretty boy. When I was young. I do remember being in the county jail when I was 19 years old. This black dude though, frickin' said to me, he's like, "Man, you ever go to the joint? They're gonna like you," because I was a pretty boy. I was kind of like this pretty boy. I'm like, what does that even mean? You know what I'm saying? But because I was a tough guy, I might have been a pretty boy, but I was a fighter. I didn't whoop that dude, but like that dude who said that got in a fight with my boy in my cell, and then started winning the fight. So I jumped in and like I whooped the dude. So I ended up whooping that dude, some black dudes, some stocky black dude. And so I let him know I'm not just another pretty face. But anyways, bro. So God bless you, man. Listen. Get off probation, and then you can go do whatever you want. Go down Fresh and Fit. Maybe get on Patrick Bet David. Were you on Patrick Bet David?
I've already been on Patrick.
That's what I thought. I thought that guy was seen it. I talked to Mario one time about being on his show, but then they never got back. But yes, I do remember. In fact, that's the only time I watched Patrick Bet David, and so he's like one of the only YouTubers I actually watch, and that's where I learned about your story. That's why I watched it, and it was compelling. And I watched the whole thing. I learned a lot, and I was like, man, I was like, well, I knew a guy who was kind of like you to a degree, a little bit a black dude. His name was Lucky, and he was a cyber scammer and like a fraudulent, and like he could take a loan out on your house without you even knowing, and tons of stuff like that. And it was like you, but on a smaller level. And so I was fascinated, and I always think, damn it, man, like this guy had it figured out. You know what I'm saying? Even though you didn't.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, bro, you and I both know, had you done that, had you not made some of the stupid mistakes you made, you probably could have pulled it off for a while.
Maybe. I don't think much. I try not to think about it.
No, don't think about it, bro. Don't think about it. But you had a good run. You know what I'm saying? You had a good run. Did you have fun while you did it?
Oh yeah, I always love when people are like when I was on the run for 3 years, and people are always like, or they always say like, man, that must have been stressful, and I'm always like, actually, it's like the best part of my life.
No, man, balling out of control.
Yeah, and I had driver's licenses issued by the DMV. I got passports issued by the State Department. Like I've got money. Like I wasn't scared. Like, oh my God, that cop looked at me. I don't give a fuck. I'll talk to that cop.
Yeah.
He can say, give me your ID. Absolutely. Here's my ID. Here's, yeah. I got pulled over. I've been pulled over multiple times. I went to traffic school with somebody else because I got so many tickets in his name. I was going to lose the guy's license.
That's funny.
So, I'm not worried about it. So
that's funny.
Yeah, but
I didn't want to lose his license.
I had a car in his name. I've got a car.
Yeah.
I think I had 2 cars in his name. I can't lose this guy's license. I mean, fuck, I got 2 vehicles in his name.
How did you get caught eventually?
Eventually, Dateline. There's a TV show called. You've heard
Yeah,
Dateline.
I know Dayline.
They were coming out with a 1-hour special on me, and I'm on the run, and I thought there'd already been a bunch of newspaper articles and magazine articles, but those are, I'm not worried about that, right? So those are kind of local, and I don't know anybody that reads like Fortune magazine, like and the newspaper articles are like in Tampa. They're not where I was. I was living in Nashville by that point. And I found out Dateline was coming out, and I thought, oh, I'm fucked. I mean, let's face it. Even if nobody notices you right away, they keep playing that over and over again. One day you're going to walk in to get, or one day the barista at Starbucks is going to be laying in bed.
And it's you.
He's going to watch an hour episode of Dateline. He's going to be like, that guy comes in all the time.
Yeah.
And then he's going to call the fucking Secret Service or U.S. Marshals or FBI. They're going to sit in the fucking Starbucks for 3 days. And I'm going to walk in one day and he's going to be like, that's it. So I knew it was just over. And so we started pulling money out of the bank, and I was going to go to Australia because Australia at the time had what you could go to Australia with 200 grand. I was going to go with a couple million. So, but the minimum was 200 grand, a business plan, and they would make you a permanent resident alien. So you can't vote, but they give you a driver's license. You can buy property. You can't take a job, but you could open a business. So they want you to show up, open a business, hire Aussies. You can buy a house.
Yeah.
And if I show up with a couple $1 million,
you're good.
I'm going to be good. And I had a passport in the name of a guy that had never been arrested. And the other thing was, if you showed up, the permanent resident alien is what they called it. If you showed up as a permanent resident alien, they didn't fingerprint you. So that was the big thing. They're not going to fingerprint me. I just have to show up.
And their fingerprint base is probably not connected to Americans.
Well, no, they would. That's the problem. You could apply for citizenship, but they would run your prints from the FBI.
Oh.
So it was like, that's out. But they don't print you if you just show up and you hand them a copy of your, like you can go to local police station and they'll run your criminal record.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. You show up and you give them, here's my criminal record, but they don't run your fingerprint. Right. And the guy I had the passport in the name of, he doesn't have a criminal record. That plus a couple million and 2 or 3 business plans, I'm straight in.
Yeah, you're good for life.
Yeah, well, it didn't get that far because my girlfriend that I was dating at the time knew who I was. She confided in a friend. That friend called the Secret Service. She negotiated a reward. They watched my house for 3 days and arrested me.
How much was the reward?
$10,000.
Oh my God!
Right, like so insulting.
I mean, she could have just went to you and said, "They're offering 10. What can you do?"
I have said that over again. If she had shown up, I'd have given her $500,000 for a fucking 10-minute head start.
Yeah.
You can still call them.
Yeah.
I'll just give you 10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes. You'll never find them.
Nope. Yeah.
How stupid. Stupid people are. 10 grand. That's insulting. That's insulting.
Yeah.
Listen, bro. So, all meant to be. It's all part of God's plan. It's all part of your life. All part of your testimony. Now, because of that, you've been on Patrick Bet-David. You've been on Dateline. You have a good podcast. You know these people. You're making connections. You're growing up. They're 5 years out. You're doing really well. And you're going to do a lot better. So just keep up the good work. All part of the plan. You're a super smart guy, bro. If you can't take what you know and hear and what you've done and leverage it into some kind of success in life, then something's wrong because you have an advantage. You got, people don't have your type of, know. What is your plan right now besides podcast? I'm interviewing you now.
Yeah, it's fine. I said we should wait to do your program, your radio show.
Yeah, yeah, I will.
So, when I was locked up, I want to say I wrote like 5 or 6 books of fellow inmates. They were true crime.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a memoir and then I wrote a bunch of guys, a couple guys' memoirs and then some true crime. I've written a couple since I got out. And then I wrote about 22 or 23 synopses, like maybe 10,000 words, people's story. So I signed a first look with 2 different companies. One is Law and Crime, and they're currently calling several of the guys' stories, and they're supposed to be doing you know how they have to have so many people to make a documentary,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Sure.
So it's either going to be a few episodes. Some guys' stories will be maybe an episode, maybe an hour-long doc, right? And then some guys, they're trying to turn into like a 3-part or a 4-part series for a doc. And then the other one is my own personal story. I signed with a company called Foundation Media, and they're currently working on a series, a limited series, like 7-8 episodes. They don't know where they're going to sell it. They're still everything's being put together. I'm working with a writer. The whole thing is, who knows what's going to work, bro?
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, and this is the way I look at it, I'm enjoying going through the process. I'm probably get more enjoyment out of just going through the process and meeting everybody and talking to them and working with everybody, because I have a feeling I'm going to go and I'm going to eventually, it's like getting a movie made. I'm trying to have a good time while I make the movie, because of my fear is I'm going to walk into the movie theater, watch the 2-hour movie and walk out and be like, it was all right.
All right.
You know what I'm saying? But that's how I feel.
You never know, bro. You might listen. If that happens, I'm going to tell you why it happens, because the writing is bad. See, I don't know. I'm a professional writer. I write for a living. I'm a storyteller. I'm a professional writer. I'm an elite level writer. So I could take your story, and if I was to write your book, it would be incredible. It'd be incredible. They would if they made a movie out of the book that I wrote on your life. It would. What's the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio with the
You're thinking Catch Me If You Can?
It would be something like that. It would read like that. It would be like that. It would be better than that. I would write it better than that. That's how I'd write it. And I don't know. You may have written these things. You may even be a writer. I don't know. Maybe you're a good writer. Maybe you're a great writer. I have no idea. But usually, if you are like a born great writer, you would know by now. I'm a born great writer. Like, I'm a great writer. Or maybe you're like, I think I'm a good writer. But whatever the case is, if your story is told the right way, it'll be amazing, and you'll walk out of that movie theater in tears. You walk out of there in tears because the ending is so good. Now, how would we make that ending? You could write the ending into existence too. That's kind of how we're going to do it. But you can write a paradoxical ending. The paradoxical ending of your book, of the story, is that a movie gets made based on your life that sets you for life, even though a movie really isn't made, but it is. You see what I'm saying? So the story is written. So the story you're watching on the screen is the story that, like, you see it unfolding on the screen, but as you make the movie, there really was no movie until you finish the movie.
Yeah.
It's a paradox. So that would be an interesting way to end your story. And then, but there's a million things you could do too. Like, do you have any business aspirations?
I mean, YouTube is doing great. Like, what I'm doing, look, here, the thing is, right now, like, everything's working. It's working slowly and it's a grind, but I'm not really doing anything that I don't enjoy doing, if that makes sense. Like, I've managed to create a pretty good life for myself, and it all seems to be just getting better and better and better. So, business idea, like, other than maybe buying rental properties in the future, that sort of thing. Other than that, I have no real business aspirations as far as opening a business.
I think you're so smart in terms of that type of thing, where you could, I mean, like you said, rental properties, tax lien properties. There's a lot of ways to juggle money. You know what I'm saying? And make money from money without money. You know what I'm saying? You got a $7,000 credit line. Right? If I had a $7,000 credit line, I said, right now I can take this $7,000 and I'll turn it into $20,000. If you say you got a month, you got 1 month, take $7,000 and turn it into $20,000. You can't break the law. I mean, if I said that to you, I bet you'd find a way to do it.
I'd probably break the law.
No, you wouldn't.
No, I've had to figure something out.
You would do it. You would figure it out. You would. If I said, I'll give you $7,000, you have to turn it into 20 by the end of the month, or within 1 month. I guarantee you, with a mind like yours, you'll go, 100%, dude. This won't even be hard. You'll be like, all right, I take this and I do that and do that. I mean, it could be something as easy. What I would do, because I'm not as complex as you in terms of that type of realm of business and things, money, but I would just flip. I would buy and sell something. Here's what I would do. In Michigan, you can buy boats for cheap. Boats, right? I could buy a boat for $7,000 in Michigan and drive it down the Key West and sell it for $20,000. That'd be an easy thing. You know what I'm saying? That's how easy it could be. You could literally do it that easy. Just put it on the truck, drive it to freaking Key West. That same boat up in Michigan, it only gets used 2-3 months a year. Down there is high value. Up here, it's almost worthless. You know what I'm saying? But there's a million of them up here. You can get them for cheap. Yeah, I got you thinking, bro. Huh?
I always wonder why people don't finance boats, like the individuals. Why not go buy a cheap, like you said, cheap boat, renovate it a little bit, and then sell it and finance it? You could put a tracker on it. People just don't do that.
What do you mean sell it and finance it? Or let sell it to somebody else and let them pay you the rent, pay you the payment.
Yeah. Like if you buy a boat for $1,000, you put whatever, you renovate the boat, you sell it, you put it on, just like for used cars. You say, hey, I'll sell it to you for $4,000, $5,000. Give me $1,000 down now, but it's a much nicer boat. Give me $1,000. The worst that happens is you lose your elbow grease that you put into it.
Yeah.
You're going to at least get your money back. But the truth is, even if half of those boats went bad and you're selling them for $5,000, you're still tripling your money.
They're not going to go bad, though. You're only going to have 1 out of every 20 go bad.
That's what I'm saying. And people don't realize that. But for some reason, people don't do that because they don't understand financing and they don't understand.
Matt, I just helped you create a multi-million-dollar business plan, right?
I'm doing good. I like what I'm doing.
I'm just saying,
right?
If you just did what you just said, right there. I mean, I can help you get the boats. Boom, you'll be in business. And then what you do is you start like an app where guys find the boats and they clean them up. Mm-hmm. Before you know it, you can have a boat finder app, and then there's your company is selling boats all over the country. You got like 5,000 boats being tracked, but boom, you're a multi-millionaire. Patrick Beck-David, you're back on Patrick Beck-David, man. I was having this conversation with Gunnar Lindbloom. You know Gunnar Lindbloom, this freaking guy? Yeah, he tells me he should make money on boats. I got to thinking, you know what? Why don't people do this? Which is actually a good deal. Or cars, though. Cars, too.
Well, that's what's so funny is people do that now. Buy here, pay here.
Buy here, pay here. Buy here, pay here. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I'm sure some people do it on boats, but, I've never heard of it, and that people really do that. And the nice thing is now it's how easy is it to track where the boat is.
You just throw a little GPS thing on it there, and you're good. A little GPS thing in the job,
right? Especially if they don't know about it.
No, you're not telling them. They you just show up at the barbecue one day if they stop paying. They're at the dock. You're like, yo, bro, you ain't paid in 3 months, man. Time to pay up. Everybody got money. Party's over. Or pay up. Anyways, well,
yeah. Listen, if you do want to do an episode, let me know on for the radio.
I do. 100% want to do that. I will send you an invite. Yeah, I'll have my wife send you an invite. I have your email now, so I'll send you an invite and get you on. And it won't be as long because we only have an hour, But
right.
But still, you got a great story, and I want to hear it all in detail. I remember it all from Patrick Beck-David. I listened to it. It's one of those shows where I usually don't even watch those type of shows through, but you were interesting, and I enjoyed you. So I remember, and plus AJ said you got to go on Matt Cox, and like a couple other people said the same thing. I don't even remember, but we had an exchange about 2 years ago, bro.
Yeah, then it just fizzled out.
Right? It fizzled out. Somebody said, I forgot. Whatever. We both got busy. We had our own.
I don't think I was doing remote podcasts at the time.
No, or you're just doing it in person.
Yeah, so you would have had to have come here.
Yeah.
Or something. Because I only started doing this a few years ago. But hey, let me wrap this up, and when we're off screen, I'll talk to you about it.
Yeah, wrap it up. Do what you got to do.
All right, hold on one second. Okay. Hey, if you like the video, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. Also, I'm going to leave all of Gunnar's links to all of his books and the other things that we were talking about. So all of his social media links and everything will be in the description. So check them out, click on them, follow, subscribe, do all the stuff. Also, leave me a comment and do me a favor and consider joining my Patreon. It's $10. We may cut up some of the content that you haven't seen and put it on Patreon. We're going to be putting at least an hour every single week of specific to Patreon content. So I really appreciate you guys watching. See ya.